can please come on to the dais. Yes, please. The panel moderator, Dr. Sreeram Sistla, Senior Consultant, Tata Trusts. Welcome to you, sir. With several years of experience in healthcare, consulting, and operations within the health industry, he is passionate about delivering quality, affordable, reliable, and cost-effective healthcare services with a focus on quality and compassionate care while meeting the needs of every patient in need. We will just wait for Dr. Velumani.
Lots of people, technology, we can involve the audience.
Yeah.
Just quickly go call Velumani. Welcoming back Dr. Swami Velumani, sir. Over to you, Dr. Sreeram.
That's fine. I just wanted to. So, very good morning. So, we are going to have an interesting discussion around. I would prefer that lots of ideas should be coming from there, where we have the people representing the technology and very importantly, the very people who use technology, leverage technology, the doctors. Said that. See, the topic is interesting in such a way that the heading is, it goes by integrated healthcare delivery, that's the catchword, through technology-enabled rural outreach. So it is a rural outreach and technology and rural outreach and making sure that you are able to deliver an integrated healthcare. Initially, first time when I was looking at it, I thought it was a small thing like my final year of medicine when I was trying to attempt some questions in the social and preventive medicine. But when I try to learn more about it, hundreds of pages of documentation right from WHO, World Health Organizations. So first thing that I learned was there are more than 174 models of integrated healthcare delivery. That's voluminous. And then I was trying to look at what is outreach. Outreach, is it something going beyond hospital and trying to reach people wherever they are located? If that is outreach. So are we entering into the community and having entered into the community, the way it's happening, which has happened quite some time back, 4 or 5 decades back in other countries, especially in the advanced countries like West, entering into the very homes, which the government of India has already incorporated into public health delivery, the so-called home-based neonatal care and child. So the paradigm is totally shifts the whole thing. But trying to stay focused, because they're very focused that the 4 topics were chosen under this. The role of telemedicine and health ecosystem initiatives. That's one. Then digital diagnostics is one. That is going to be thing that Velumani, sir, you have discussed Thyrocare. I think going by this agenda today, you spoke about 1.0. Thing is, we are going to ask all of us, what is your 2.0? Where next? And digital diagnostics, and can you try to reach them out into the rural areas? As all of us, we heard all the 3 eminent people telling us how we want to take them to the rural doorstep, very doorstep, and make it absolutely cost effective.
You want me to tell now?
No, I'm just trying to put up the context. And a third one is about the medical devices. Medical devices, well, anything that medical devices, again, trying to refer to the way the World Health Organization talks about the safety, the efficiency, the quality, and the cost. These are the 4 pillars of medical technology. And of course, medical devices, they make sure that we realize the benefits of the objective data. Well, one interesting thought that occurred to me this morning was, I was sharing with ma'am just now, a few minutes back. The mind doesn't know, the eyes cannot see. If it's an MRI that I'm expected to, somebody gives me a film of MRI, I don't know how to read an MRI. If I don't know, how do I read MRI? As simple as that. Let me not talk about an MRI. If the glucometer gives me a value of 200 milligrams at any time of the day, do I know that I am a potential diabetic? There's a person who has collected the sample, going to the doorstep of a patient, an ASHA, ANM, or anybody who has been trained. Someone said that not necessarily that you have qualified nurses, you can have trained nurses. When such people go there, can they inform the patient or the beneficiary or the person who was volunteered to undergo the so-called screening that the patient is going to be in trouble, that he has a potential diabetic and he should be seeking health care. Now the machines, they are helping. In case I can't read, the machine is helping out. There is a decision support system. Most of the ECG machines that are in the market that are available, they will tell you there is an ischemia. They will tell you there is a dysrhythmia. They will tell you there is a tachycardia. They will tell you there is a bradycardia. It helps. So the machine is helping. But the same thing goes with the diagnostics. The reference ranges are given. Every person, not necessarily a medical professional, can look at that one. And first thing that comes in apprehension. Second one is they would realize that they really need to do something about it. But when it goes to the person who is going to look at the data, the correlation, if the machine tells you something, how you correlate with the clinical picture, that has to come from the challenge is to the medical doctor. So, the technology that is also going to support the educational part of it, the capacity building part of it. And now the challenge is, and trying to fold it back, how do you want to take this one into the rural outreach? Make it possible. Would there be enough time? Would there be people that would want to sit with you and then go through the whole thing? And the last one is the role of healthcare, healthcare technology. This is a bit, I really would wanted to understand the panel discussion is centered on integrated healthcare delivery through technology-enabled rural outreach. That is the model. Now it is a role of health technology in the rural outreach. That means you need to be looking at the very role of health technology in the rural outreach. In a hospital, I think there are no qualms about it, and then not much of discussion is required. Should be very interesting to get to understand some of these things. And I think I will start with, I will request Velumani sir, and what do you think? The question which I already have shared with you. I assumed that you spoke about 1.0. Now, how about 2.0?
1.0 was business. 2.0 will be pure give back. When I say so, in fact, the exit itself was to signal success is not creating money wealth. Success is becoming happier. How many of us teach our children how to become happy? All of us teach them how to become rich, powerful personalities. So happiness is something which I think will be the goal for the 2.0 in terms of me. In terms of what I do will be, as I said, creating impact to the society. And number 3 is, I started my journey of 1.0 when there was only pager. There was no internet, no email, no Android. Now I am starting this phase with metaverse, intimidating the old man. Can you understand? And I don't think old man is ever an old man as long as he keeps reading, learning. I must tell you here, the day you stop learning, you become the fossil. And I only started with a BSc, and then I kept on learning. And 2.0 will be even more learning, because you need to deliver it to the all youth today who are for every 5 years, one more generation. TikTok generation is different. Like that, Swiggy generation is different. So everything keeps changing. If you have to deliver, we need to learn a lot. Looking at technologies, there is a huge competition. 8 billion brains are working to become richer, which means the outcome will certainly be helping common man to live better. This is my perception. Very often, what goes wrong is pricing. I want you people to understand, if you're into business, very often what goes wrong is pricing. There are only 2 things. One is security, another is prosperity. For security, you don't need to take risk. For prosperity, you need to take all the risk. But unfortunately, everybody wants a secured prosperity which is not existing. Now, coming to pricing, everybody wants to be secured. So they price it high. The minute you price it high, your security probably is there, but certainly not prosperity. And I must again tell you here, pricing generally people do by talking to 4 neighbors who do the similar business and collecting their price list and making A plus B plus C plus D divided by 4. Right? No one identifies what is the actual pricing should be. I did it. I didn't price like my neighbor. I priced it lower. Only mistake I have done was pricing it lower. That made me a billionaire. Trust me, everybody is price conscious, including the billionaire. So you have to deliver the cheapest without compromising the quality. And many people tell that quality is costly. That is what the society made it to be. Quality need not be costly, but pricing very often goes wrong. There is no company on this earth closed down because they have priced it low. If companies are closed down, it is closed down because in spite of pricing it high, they could not control the cost. glaring evidences are BSNL and Airtel and Jio. Same industry. Air India and Indigo. That is efficiency. So a lot of things are there. I can keep on telling, but 1.0 and 2.0. If you know COGS, you understand what is COGS? Cost of goods. If you know COGS, you can do business. But if you know the COGS of COGS, have you understood what I'm talking? Your vendor's balance sheet, you can create disruption. So now I know what it is. Now I know what is truth. If there is no truth, there can't be transparency. And if there is no truth and transparency, you can't get the trust. So 2.0, I wish make use of the human resources the best. I have employed 15,000 freshers. I have never employed one experienced. I have created an organization only with freshers, just college pass. I am pretty sure this country has got, then after doing the college pass out experiment, I realize you don't require a graduate, HSC pass is more than enough. And HSC pass the country has enough. So 2.0 will be HSC pass used resources, scale, volume, and look at how to make it affordable. And I said my business has had 40% profitability. I just imagine if I do a 5%, 10% profitability, what actually will happen? It will transform the society. So I'm looking at the 2.0 as job creation, and create a job for someone who has never, that family has never seen a monthly salary. Farmers, poor, who can't speak English. India has still huge population. I am seeing even in the parliament, one parliamentarian cannot speak English, other parliamentarian cannot understand Hindi. That is happening in parliament. So look at the local people, local language, local employment, local problem, local solution, empowered by an IT-enabled, controlled, monitored, empowered. That's 2.0.
I thought that the 2.0 from my perspective.
Still working?
I hope that other friends would agree with me. Can I look at self-management, education and training? One of the pillars of chronic care management, especially when you highlighted diabetes besides tuberculosis. 2.0, would it focus on that? The way that glucometers are, anybody can get a glucometer free of cost, but you only have to buy glucose strips. Do you want to make it happen?
Everybody should not have glucometer is my opinion. That is why I said 1 nurse per 1,000. The glucometer also should be utilized daily 20 times, not once in 20 days. Is that clear? The capacity utilization is one thing which has to be done. Number two, how to teach every man who does not even know how to do basic things to teach glucometer. I believe that this 1 nurse per 1,000 will work. The man should know, once diagnosed diabetes, sugar, rice, wheat, potato, if you avoid, diabetes is 90% controlled. Only 4 things. Sugar, rice, wheat, potato. Do you know all these 4 things were not existing before 500 years? Man created. We have created the problem. So educating him that. The next one is sugar 120 ka niche. That's enough. As you said, normal range. So create awareness. Once in a while, do a monitoring. There is a HbA1c test, which is also unnecessarily made costly. It's charged around 800 rupees, 1000 rupees in corporate hospitals. The cost of the test is only 25 rupees. It gives you a mean of sugar for the last 3 months. So these two things, if it is there, literally speaking, diabetes is controlled. But I fully agree with you. Not only diabetic patient, every patient should be taught how maximum management he himself can do for himself. This is very important. Why only patient? Every child has to be taught how to manage his own affairs independent of anyone else, even without parents' support. Independence is very important. Managing his problems by his own, as much as you can do, you don't have to spend resources for that.
Before I let this, I would want people to raise pertinent questions and also share whatever they really would want to focus and highlight. This is totally technology related. Nowadays, there is no need for a hard copy to be going to the patient about in the form of a report. When you are able to generate and then give me a soft copy, and when I access, whenever I want to access the result, if I click, if I are able to provide a link the results, can you compute and correlate and able to raise suspicion and alert the patient that raise an alert the patient needs to see a doctor? For example, especially I'm going back to diabetes. If there is a nephropathy, the creatinine is on the higher side and then urea is also on the higher side, and warn them. The early signs, impaired, or at the very beginning, at the bottom level, impaired glucose tolerance and diabetes as such. Would you want to do that?
I'm very bullish very often, but I am very careful also. That 1,000 people should not know everything because they don't know how to interpret it. Very often diagnostic tests are elevated, but is not dangerous. He should not get panicked and he should not have another problem because of misinterpreting. I think that lady whom I want to appoint for 1,000 people needs to know everything as much as possible. She should dilute and effectively communicate. She should connect that patient to that doctor through logics which the computer is driving. Don't depend too much on that 1 in 1,000 also, because they may have personal bias, have sometimes some interest with some doctors or with some purpose, but it is very good to provide logics. That's why I said enabled, empowered, monitored, controlled, everything that apps should do. But the moderator, in my personal opinion, should be that nurse, should be, which I have told as 100,000, which is easy to manage. Training is easy, simple. But then the end user will get harassed if I talk little more.
Thank you. Anyone would want to raise an issue on this and the diagnostics? 2.0, not necessarily Thyrocare. Yes, sir.
Very happy to know you. A lot of things I can relate with you. And a question very particular to you. Nowadays, I'm an intensivist and I'm president of ISCCM. I practice at Ahmedabad. Patient comes with the report and thousands of reports. They go for the checkup. So, it really creates a lot of burden whomsoever the patient goes to with the report. So why it is so important that we do all the tests in a given thing, like all the metals and everything is being done. So I'm giving you an idea. There is an opportunity for you to cut down the cost further by customizing the cost which is not necessary. It's just a thought.
Yeah. That is 2.0. 1.0 was give maximum to the patient in minimum cost. This is the buffet. So that the customer feels I am given a lot, number one. Number two, there are so many silent illnesses inside. Doesn't give any suspicion. Do you know I was diabetic? I run the world's largest preventive care laboratory. And I was diabetic and I was sitting in front of a friend, doctor, and was talking. Within 30 minutes, I finished his full Bisleri bottle. So he asked me, did you check for diabetic? And then went and checked, I was highly diabetic. Is that clear? So very often, there are a lot of hidden, unknown, you didn't hear to the symptoms, there are a lot available. Next point is, for me getting the specimen from that man's home to my floor is the cost. Each additional test is only 2 rupees. So what I try to do, give the maximum. That's a burden on the doctor. It is like search which is abnormal. So I do agree it's a challenge. That should be in 2.0 addressed. Number one, we need not do all the tests. Number two, an app should tell only what 3 of these things need to be attended. Remaining need not be attended, so that there is an ease of management. But having said that, the package Arogyam was well received and well appreciated, because many shocking parameters were observed by the medical community, and I really enjoyed doing that, because telling someone what is abnormal is very, very important. It can be reduced. Yes, there were less relevant tests. They had some meaning.
We know that in our country, voice is there, na? Hemoglobinopathies. So there are around 5 crore people who are having either thalassemia minor or sickle cell trait. But hardly only 10 lakh people, they know that they are actually having this thalassemia minor or sickle cell trait. It is because we know that the HPLC test which is required to diagnose like thalassemia minor is a costly affair. In a private lab, it costs almost 600 rupees and 700 rupees or so. So what can be an alternative thinking that we can make a comprehensive pan-India type of model, so that everybody should get tested, at least for those who should come to know before their marriage. So there should be some, what can be done for this? This is the question to you.
Thank you. I know thalassemia a bit better. I have met him earlier. There is a lady, Jasmine Majetia. She is 80 plus and she is more energetic than 40 plus. I must tell you, she has been such a fighter. Probably she goes big, borrows, pressurizes everything, not for herself, for getting that solution for thalassemia patients. I have done hundreds of thousands of thalassemia for that organization. Yes, thalassemia test is very costly, but let me tell you the question which he asked, and the question you asked, some common answers. CBC, just simple CBC. The CBC has so many parameters. Do you know using CBC, thalassemia can be narrowed down? I'm sure, pretty sure he knows it. It's a CBC. Do you know cancer also can be diagnosed using CBC? Yes, all blood cancers will have some, at least the, what you call as leukemias, all can be identified. How costly is a CBC? Raw material cost 20 rupees. So, even for thalassemia, a large scale CBC screening also helps. Number one. Number two, the machine is costly. And if the machine is not used, the test is very costly. So, a centralized location, if machines are there, the machine runs 20 hours in a day. Thalassemia, beta thalassemia test using HPLC is also 50 rupees or 25 rupees. So, this has to be addressed to. I am pretty sure with this organization getting into it, with multiple locations, they are having hospitals, one machine there, and making people to understand you can get it done is easy and possible. As I again said, HR, logistics plays a huge role, which can give rise to scale, which can raise to volume, which can raise to cutting in cost, and complete solutions can be provided. That's one more thing which can be addressed.
Thank you, sir. So, ma'am, can we...
volume is not heard. Either you keep it close.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I think it's fine. I think now it comes to you. So, may I request you to talk about the role of telemedicine and the health system, ecosystem initiatives, which you have seen and which you really would like to plan. Coming from Phillips, I think that should be interesting.
So, I mean, whatever I speak here, a part of it is professional, and a part of it is, as a citizen of India, what I feel or what I observe. So, when it comes to the telemedicine, I mean, if you see the state of India today, we have the internet reaching to every nook and corner. I mean, the remotest area has the infrastructure in place today. I mean, we have all seen that in the pandemic time that children from the remotest area were able to take classes on their mobile phones. That is one part of it. Am I audible? Okay. So that's one part of it. As a somebody coming from the technology company, that is what I see. As a citizen of India, what I see here today, that in the last few years, when it comes to the awareness, when it comes to the creating a different infrastructure in the remote areas has also been in place. So coming to the small thing like Swachh Bharat, that also creates a kind of awareness. The infrastructure of ASHA workers. So combining these few things together, I feel that the stage is set now for us to take off or accelerate any work what we do. Sir talked about having a nurse for a community or for a certain region. I would say that we can even have a smaller solution which can be utilized by the low-skilled workers who can go around and be a part of from that community. I'm talking about the ASHA worker or community health worker who can be equipped with the small measurement devices, with the solutions which we bring in. Once they have that kind of information collected from the community, that is where our technology or our solution can play a role. And then the second part, play a role collecting the data. And then sir talked about that we have a lot of data when it comes to the test data or the diagnosis data. The technology can enable to analyze it and also present it in a way that the decision making for a doctor is much faster. Instead of him having to go through pages of diagnostic and those parameters, can we play an algorithm which can present the data where the decision making is much faster? I hope I'm making a sense to all the doctors here. That is one thought I have. And we have worked in the past for few solutions where we have tried to see the this hypothesis whether it works or not work, and it certainly increases our outreach to the people. Coming to the telemedicine, should I touch upon that as well?
Yeah, you can also
include sure.
Talk about medical devices.
Yeah. So far, the diagnostic was to the labs, to the hospitals, to the big MR and all those machines. But now it is becoming a micro. I mean, you have a small diagnostic system, you have a small things which can give you some quick results. Now, including that as a part of the people's life, we have done, when I started hospital to home, it was about post-discharge, when the hospital comes to your home for taking care of you along with your caregiver. But over the years, this has evolved. Over the years, it has evolved because we also would like to be part at the time of the prevention and not at the time of diagnosis alone and the treatment. So starting from the prevention and the well-being and the screening, that is where also the telemedicine or the role of a technology can come into the picture, so that we avoid emergencies, we avoid early detections, or so we do the early detection and avoid the emergencies. So right from the prevention where, we are part of the people's life through the technology and doing the screening and bringing them the notice of their condition, the technology plays a role as we move along today. And as I said, that India has the stage set with the outreach of the internet to all the places, some sort of awareness and the infrastructure of the people. I think it's a time to leverage this and take it forward. That's what I would believe.
I just wanted to add a few things about the role of telemedicine. The way we have experienced and then seen good results. When in Tata Trust, we had initiatives. We have rolled out initiatives in state of Andhra Pradesh and then Uttar Pradesh. So in Vijayawada was the place where we are on a hub and spoke model. Around 21 clinics were connected to a hub of doctors, 6 of them available at any given point of time, of course during the working hours. So there we were able to make sure that we trained the nurses, though everybody believes in task scripting now, and then we were able to train the nurses. The training was to examine the patient and come out with a basic medical record which can be shared with the doctor, and doctor will take it forward. We connect them audio visually, and of course the data is always there, and doctor knows, identifies the patient well before he is connected. That was the model. The same thing happened in Uttar Pradesh, in Mathura and also in Vrindavan. These are 2 places. So that I call it 1.0. So when we came to Hyderabad in Telangana, I think I should say that we went up to 2.0, where we try to leverage, take the model, escalate the model. We started connecting patients who are next to the nurses or medical doctors in PHCs or health and wellness centers to specialists in teaching hospitals. It was a chest hospital, it was a Gandhi General Hospital, it was a Usmania Hospital and Nizam Institute of Medical Sciences. 64 specialists, they participated, including, and then very interestingly, in under 2.0 itself, I think we were talking about integrated healthcare delivery. So leveraging telemedicine platform, especially for diabetes and hypertension, and of course when we were able to detect some nephropathy and all that, we were able to connect people not only to the specialists, but also we made sure that there are an opportunity to talk to the nutritionists, there are an opportunity to talk to the physiotherapists. So in fact, actually, I really want to share this experience. The health secretary and then health commissioner, both of them, they visited. So they refused to believe that these so-called counseling or consultations can be carried on. But when they spent around half an hour time, they were able to see that there were individual consultations and counselings. Let it be a pregnant woman wanted to talk about it. Let someone with diabetes and hypertension, when doctors educated that they need to take care of their weight, the weight management part of it, and somebody wanted to really improve their weight. So it was endless, especially for diabetes, the right kind of advice. And people were coming in groups, especially when our model was based upon villages. The elderly people like me of my age, especially village, we have seen, that is the experience, they come in groups, that too in particular hours. So after everybody has left home and all that, they make sure that grandchildren have gone to school, they come together in 6 or 8 numbers. So all these 6 or 8 people, when we involve in a video consultation or a conference with the nutritionist, all of them are diabetic. It's like a self-help group or Alcoholic Anonymous sharing their experiences and then trying to tell each other where we thought that people were drawing support from others. That was a kind of integrated health delivery. And doing all these things, another thing that we went beyond, that try to handle the patients when they reach these hospitals, during the consultations, it is a kind of prioritization. The specialists were able to recognize an emergency and alert the patients and the doctor next to the patient that they should not be delaying and they should reach the hospital. At the same time, we were able to make sure that an appointment was scheduled in public health system. That gives a lot of assurance. But the challenge was these people getting lost in the crowd. That we made sure that there is at the help desk, there was somebody who is going to receive all these people who come with a referral, and then they are guided to the patient. It's a kind of care continuum that's at work. And finally, we try to close it with the follow-up calls. We are following case of non-communicable diseases in reproductive, mother and child, this thing. Very interesting, even hemophilia, the government wanted to follow up. These are the few learning initiatives there.
I wish to add a point here. There is a huge difference or a distance or a gap between the fantasy and the reality everywhere in life. So is in digital health and telemedicine. Two things very important. If you are stakeholder there, please find out how you can make use of the opportunity. We, especially Indians, are getting used to listening and following and enjoying stories. And there are enough stories in Bollywood, enough stories in Netflix. Everything is entertaining only. Informations are not shared in stories. Knowledge is not shared in stories. There is a huge gap for common man to learn. You tell him Bhashan, he will not listen. Tell it in a story, he will listen. In other words, content, good quality content in local language can impact his not only knowledge, management of the disease also. So the content is one thing which is missing. Please note, there is a huge gap. We can very well fill in there. Number two, logistics, I said, it's not only for material go to place. Demand somewhere, supply somewhere else, who connects? Patient everywhere, doctors are many, who connects? What we need is a connector. The connector should make sure people are made ready both ends without wasting time. The patient keeps changing. Here the doctor is sitting. Then the patient moves out, nutritionist. Moves out, physiotherapist. Like that, solutions are as of now not existing. You need not be a doctor, you need not be a patient. You create platforms through which you can connect them. So content and the connectivity in terms of putting things in place is two major gaps which might reduce the gap between expected and possibly happening. These are my inputs.
So again, I think I will bounce it back to you. You can spend a few minutes on what do you think of the role of health technology in rural outreach?
So as I was talking about,
Then I think I will also try to bring to your attention, and most of I think friends should be knowing, especially Phillips, when they experimented along with Banner Health in United States, you were able to connect the elderly population over a video and also make sure that they capture their reports and all that and advise them accordingly. That was a great success. Actually, that paved the way for home-based care and also especially to take care of people in elder homes and also in children in orphanages.
so there are two things. One is about the elder care and another thing about the rural outreach. So one of the program which we rolled out, it was about during the pregnancy, the remote areas where you don't even have the internet, their low-skilled workers would go around and they will collect the data, and whenever they are connected to the internet, the data will then get uploaded to the site. So these kind of programs also have helped where there was nothing. You start from nothing, and at least now you have the continuous data about the health of the pregnant woman from the time of the gestation to the delivery. So that was one of the program where we have reached out to the rural outreach. The another thing was about a small measurement device when it comes to the children respiration. So we know that the pneumonia is one of the biggest issue when it comes to the child mortality below the age of 5. And today, the methods by which the respiration rate, which plays a very critical role in detecting pneumonia, there are all rudimentary methods which are used by all these low-skilled workers, the ASHA workers or the community health workers. That was in Africa what we did, where the nurses were actually using the beats to count the respiration rate of the child, which can be error-prone. That is where we made the measurement devices which can be tied around the child's chest, and you get the respiration rate along with the indication whether it is falling off or within the range. So these kind of a small programs where you don't even need the bigger technology, you don't even need the internet to be present or the data to be transmitted anywhere. We can equip the low-skilled workers and can help out the rural outreach. Now coming to the second part about the telemedicine for the elderly care. So there was a program which we did where, post-discharge for the cardiac patient. Once they are discharged, they are given some measurement devices and a solution on the tablet. Every day morning, they just had to take the measurements, and via Bluetooth, the measurement goes to the tablet. Now what the tablet does, it does two things. Number one, it transmits the data to the backend where it is further computed and presented to the telemonitoring nurses and creates alert. And the other side on the solution on the tablet, the patient is also given a subtle messages if the parameters are not falling in the range. So that the message is in the form of maybe reduce your salt intake, go for a walk, or have a light dinner, along with the educational videos to manage their condition at home. The other side, the telemonitoring nurse who is monitoring those things can call up the patient for the further checkup to avoid emergency if she sees that the patient is falling in that area. So these are the two. One is about the rural outreach where the small solutions, even the one where you don't really need a bigger technology to work, that can be worked out. And when it comes to the telemonitoring, connecting the people right with the back office or with the telemonitoring nurses, and then having the data presented to the presented in the right manner to take the decision plays a bigger role. Thank you.
So, can I request one of our friends to be able to?
Thank you. My name is Raju, and I'm from TCS. I have a practice of co-innovation network in TCS. So very enlightened to hear some of the conversations. I want to, in a way, ask a question which is really about value chains and supply chains. The problem of access in health exists as much as the problem of access in education. Now, these two systems work very differently, independently. Similarly, we can look at a rural level, issues like water, issues like any other utilities, etc. Every system is on its own. Now, when we are looking at trying to create, because we have got various stakeholders here, and one of the things that was talked about was on how do we integrate, different stakeholders so that there's some kind of a solution that finally gets arrived at. So, if you look at the micro level, like what you were saying, and then you are looking at good quality content, which was another point that was made about knowledge and stories, which is an important thing that by which people are going to learn. Similarly, self-help methods, another model by which people are going to learn at the most rural level. And can we look at some kind of joint models between whether it is on the education side, or it is in the pharma side, or it is in the medical side, or any other stakeholders in the room? What might be kind of a solution by which these get integrated? Now, I want to just add a kind of a comment, which may be a method, I don't know. So does a micro-credential, for example, like the nurses 1:1,000 kind of a ratio, how does that work? Because here in the education system, we are looking at learning for a test or learning for a job, and it is about all learning is associated with how to make money. But for all those people who can afford to learn, they can actually learn for being better, in their health and other reasons as well. But those are not monetized. Those are all, we just do it in the urban areas. People are doing it. A lot of micro credentials are there. But in the rural area, in this concept of knowledge by stories is an excellent method by which it can actually be purposed into rural area. So that's a thought. But I think this is a question because, how do we put in our thoughts together to start looking at integration for the access issue?
Who's the question to?
Is anybody?
Open to the panel. So the question is open to the panel. Anyone can answer, and we'll close with this question because we have a tea break after this. So, sir, over to you.
Right. I think the demands for a society is multifold. The resources or the vendors or the providers are many channels. You need a platform. Without a platform, you can't connect the providers and the consumers. Very simple. If Amazon does, yes, it gets all the manufacturers to orient them towards themselves as vendors. And it also allows every consumer to come in and choose what is that they want to take. It is seamlessly sold, bought, and I'm pretty sure in entire healthcare services or educational services, the same is possible. But we need a platform. Very simple. So is Swiggy, any restaurant they pick up, any housing society they deliver. So that's a platform. In healthcare, as of today, there is no open platforms available, only to connect the consumer and the vendor, and there is a huge space. An Amazon in healthcare is possible, and it has to be designed well and executed well. And this is what I believe was your question focused about, and that is my answer. If anybody wants to add, please go ahead.
I think you have addressed it in comprehension and in our discussion and for a cup of coffee, all of us together. That's one thing. Just wanted to kind of medical devices that we used, because I would want to just sign it off, and we'll leave it to the people to deliberate on that within their when they go back to their places. So the kind of medical devices that we try to connect is a diagnostic device which was innovated at Institute of Science, Indian Institute of Science, Patsod, where interestingly we were able to look at glycated albumin, which is supposed to be one of the best indicators for diabetes and all, and ACR ratio. This is two things besides HbA1c. And then we use Trinetra to be able to capture the retinal images, and we try to use it by software, trying to compare retinal images, because you can match the images. And of course, we had an ophthalmologist who were able to read those things and go back to us. So we used to, when we go to the camps and all the conductor camps, we used to take the pictures and then try to detect retinal detachment or any macular issues with the diabetics and all that, and bring it to the refer them appropriately. And besides that, we had digital sets, connected digital stethoscopes. The doctors, the consulting at the hub, they were able to listen to the heart and also listen to the lungs. That we had fairly good results. I think one of our friends will be sharing better experiences in the outreach. Then we were able to connect ECGs and also multipara monitors. Very importantly, patient examination cameras. So the thing is, the only thing is, I leave with the last note about the devices. There are lots of startups coming up, and there are lots of too many companies trying to compete, because now India is a biggest marketplace for every one of these companies. Let them be the good old original equipment manufacturers like Phillips, GA and others, but also other companies which are coming up. Now, where is the regulation? And as it is, there is a lot of challenge in the very thought process. When I was talking to the director of American Heart Association, he told me one thing, that ILCAR talks about biphasic, ILCAR talks about stacked delivery of energy delivery to defibrillate, and ILCAR talks about fixed energy levels to be given to the heart. Phillips believes in fixed energy, not more than 200 joules every time you shock a patient, if he is in cardiac arrest. Another company is the manufacturer, right, and you can vary up to 360. And both these things are agreed upon. Now, when I was talking to one of my close friends, we studied medicine together, he is a professor of cardiology, and now he is a managing director of a super specialty hospital. He'll tell me, and don't read me wrong, that medical profession is led by the industry. I leave it to you, and that's on a funny note.
I would just add here that whoever will make these things simple to use and safe for the patient is going to be going to survive. Do you believe that?
Yeah, just I will just take 100 seconds. India has a very peculiar, again, a pyramid. There are only two kinds of doctors. One has too many patients, he has no time at all. Other has no patient at all and has all the time on this earth. The job of our connectors' job is give everybody patients, because that doctor is a consultant expert only because he has seen too many patients. The other man is not at all, because he has still not seen adequate patients. So giving enough patients will make everybody consultant. Please make sure that is done. Second point, in this country, again, there are two kinds of hospitals. In one, there are so many patients, the patients are lying down on the floor. In other, there are no patients at all and the security man is sleeping in the bed. Take care of it. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Please be seated. We'll just take 2 minutes of your time, please. Just want to extend token of our appreciation and gratitude to our panelists. Request Dr. Raghupati, Director Medical Education, Sri Sathya University for Human Excellence, to kindly felicitate our panelists. Dr. A. Velumani. Dr. Sreeram Sistla. And to Ms. Rashmi Sharma. Thank you, everyone. We will now have a short 10-minute break. Beverages and snacks will be served in the first floor. Thank you. Yes, they are doing it. So one more chair has to come now. Brother, one more chair there. Where is your team, Jagan? Side. Stage team, yeah. We'll do it. We'll see. One more chair has to come. Water has to be replaced.
Jagannath Sharma.
Welcome to one and all after the break. I'm Vidya, the Chief Nutritionist at the Sri Sathya Sai Sarala Memorial Hospital. I'm sure that almost all of us seated in this room are in the habit of drawing support from the pharma industry in one way or the other, either for therapeutic or for curative reasons. This is just to showcase how indispensable is the pharma sector in our daily lives, and hence, this is included as a topic in today's workshop. To overcome some of the challenges of improper medicines distribution ecosystem and low purchasing power of patients in the rural sector, there has been considerable and consistent efforts by Indian drug companies to make the rural masses aware of prevalent diseases and encourage them to seek timely treatment. In this context, I would like to share an initiative by the Sri Sathya Sai Srijana Shravanti Trust, located in Hyderabad, which is one of the pharma hubs in India. Among other activities, this trust runs a licensed pharma bank that sources medicines from pharma companies and supports medical requirements of charitable healthcare institutions through a hub and spoke model. We will have the panel discussion now. I welcome Dr. Murali Ramachandra to the stage. Dr. Murali is the CEO at Aurigene Discovery Technologies Limited, which is a biotech company engaged in drug discovery for cancer and inflammatory diseases. With an earlier stint at Sharing Plough Pharmaceuticals and National Institute of Health, he is currently mentoring and leading efforts at operational and strategic level in establishing an innovative research and development pipeline. With a rich experience of 2.5 decades, Dr. Murali has co-authored 72 publications in peer-reviewed journals and is an inventor of 24 granted US patents. We welcome you, sir. Our next panelist on board is Mr. Sandeep Varalvar. Mr. Sandeep has 25 years of experience in the manufacturing and marketing divisions of pharma industry. He is the backbone of the pharma division of VVmed Biotech and took an active role in the development of VVS Pharmaceuticals and Chemicals Private Limited. Mr. Sandeep is currently the managing director on the board of VVmed Labs Limited. We are pleased to have you amidst us, sir. Our third panelist for this session is Mr. Bhagoji Khanapure. He is currently the drug controller of Karnataka. He has held several coveted positions over the years in the drugs control department and has guided several pharma companies on various norms, standards, quality control measures to be strictly adhered to. Mr. Khanapure has been highly instrumental in making sure that high-quality drugs are available at pharmacy outlets for the public. Hearty welcome to you, sir. And to moderate this noteworthy session, we have amidst us Shri K.V. Rambabu, who is the founder and managing director of Pulse Pharma. Shri Rambabu is an entrepreneur, a visionary who is spearheading the growth of the company. Under his able leadership, Pulse Pharma has become a force to reckon with in the pharmaceutical industry with its innovative healthcare products. Being compassionate and humble by nature, Shri Rambabu has been very supportive of the various service initiatives undertaken by the Sri Sathya Sai Healthcare Mission. Hearty welcome, sir. So without wasting much time, I now request the moderator to take over. And just a simple note, since we are running short of time, the panel discussion with the panelists will be for 20 minutes with a Q&A for 10 minutes with the audience. Over to you, sir.
So thank you. So good afternoon to all of you. I think our morning session, Dr. Velumani has set, the high expectations from us. I think he has really done very well. The frugal innovation, what he was talking about. I was sitting there and trying to understand why we are not thinking that kind of innovation in pharma space. So it is something India needs the cost-effective solution. So we can't have expensive technologies or expensive products all the time. So we need to make it affordable for the people. So that's where I think thanks for those insights. I really made a lot of notes of your ideas. So I think we have covered the diagnostics in the morning session. So now comes the treatment. Okay, so pharma industry, it's a, Swamiji also was saying the pharma is the major part of the healthcare. And without, pharma, I think the cycle is not completed. So we need, diagnostics, we need doctors to treat, and we need the medicines, pills to actually cure. So that is where we are. And I have my colleague, Sandeep, whom I know is, in fact, we are friends. And then I have Dr. Murali. Then I have Mr. Bhagoji. So who is, again, I'm honored to have a regulator in the panel, because this is where the pharma, when we want to do some innovation, the regulation actually, stops us. So now I wanted to have some insights, from sir about how we can actually bring in the frugality and, make it more practical innovation is what I was thinking. So now, when we talk about, there are three things when we say pharma, three things always people talk about is the quality, affordability, and accessibility. These are the buzzwords of pharma. So it's not something new we are talking. And particularly when we talk about rural outreach or a rural healthcare, without these three things, it cannot happen. The most important thing is the affordability. So while maintaining the quality, how can we make the drugs more affordable? So for us to make the drugs affordable, we have to have innovation, innovative process technologies. That is what India has done it actually. So we have done a lot of reverse engineering of the chemistry, and we have already substantially reduced the cost of drugs by our process technologies. And that is what Hyderabad is more known for. The most of the large companies in Hyderabad have already explored this so much. And I have now Dr. Murali, who comes from Dr. Reddys, who were the pioneers in this process innovation. Now I'm happy to know that the Dr. Reddys is now focusing on the basic innovation, drug discovery research, and they are working on certain path-breaking concepts, so which are going to be, also, solve this problem of, rural needs, health needs. So I would like to start with Dr. Murali. So how do we use these innovative therapeutics, like what we are talking about now? We have seen from small molecules to biologics, and then now personalized medicines to now the more precision medicine. People are talking about nucleic acid chemistry. So how these new innovations are going to be useful for the rural healthcare, and how they are going to be, cost effective. So I would like you to respond.
Thank you for the opportunity. So it's very clear that Indian pharma has made a significant contribution in generics. I think, as we heard, we are known as the pharmacy of the world because we are providing pretty much generics across the globe. Even in the US, about 40% of the generics is contributed by Indian pharma. But I think if you look at generics, to use the same language, it was probably pharma 1.0. Most of the generic drugs are probably about 5-10 years, or sometimes even 15-20 year old. So there are newer technologies, newer approaches, specifically as we just talked about personalized medicine, looking at specific defects, specific mutation, for example, in a cancer patient. How can we target these patients where we don't really impact the normal cells to make sure that it's a sort of more of a precision approach where we treat the specific condition as opposed to sort of a carpet bomb approach that typically chemotherapy does in cancer treatment. So I think if you look at some of these newer approaches, so clearly India has a lot of a significant role to play, not only in generics. So now I think this is where, if you look at innovative therapeutics versus generics, that's where even the Indian companies can really become huge global players. Right now they are big generics players. If you look at generics versus innovative therapeutics, value is probably 10 times or even several times higher, more than 10 times higher. So clearly I think There are no companies, I would say, unfortunately, in India that are led by because of their innovative therapeutics pipeline. And I think that's understandable. I think we have to naturally evolve into innovative pharma leaders in the world. There are, I think, companies in US or Europe, probably even Swiss being such a small company. There are a number of companies in Switzerland. They are leaders in innovative therapeutics. So I think in India, there are unique opportunities. We have talent. We have the scale. So we can take advantage of some of these things to come up innovative therapeutics that can address the medical need of Indian population, both urban as well as the rural population. So if you look at innovative therapeutics, so clearly, I think, unfortunately, when I talk to head of our clinical development, he talks about many examples, our patients, especially rural patients, they are treated with some of the therapies that are probably was in practice about 15, 20 years ago. They are not really given the newest therapies. So it's really unfortunate. I think our patients deserve as much as a patient in US or Europe does. So we need to make sure that these patients are also given the latest medicines, whether it's latest small molecules or other therapies that are available. So that's where the vision of Dr. Reddys is. Obviously, we continue to put efforts in generics. In fact, our newer goal is to reach 1.5 billion patients. It's not again making profit, it's again reaching 1.5 billion patients by 2030. So that's the newest vision of Dr. Reddys. I think to be able to reach that, we want to make sure that we can give them the latest technologies or latest medicine. I think just to give a couple of examples, for example, in cancer therapy, right now the biggest success is in immunotherapy, essentially activating our own immune cells, which can now go after cancer cells and eliminate cancer cells. So these are much more effective. Patients who get benefit, they survive for a longer duration. Unlike chemotherapy, your side effects are relatively minimal. So we want to make sure that some of these drugs are also available for Indian patients, especially rural patients. So one of the things that we are doing is most of these immunotherapeutic drugs are biologics. These are intravenous drugs. They are large molecules. The production is extremely expensive. For example, some of these, if you look at pembrolizumab, one of the most successful immunotherapeutic drugs that's sold by Merck, I think they sold about 20 plus billion last year. It takes about $120,000 per patient per year. I don't think Indian patients, especially rural patients, can afford those kind of drugs. We have to make sure that that's well within the reach of our patients, our people. So what we are doing is, can we come up with a small molecule, a pill that can do the same thing as these expensive IV biologics? We have one that's in phase 3 trial. Right now we are doing it in lung cancer. So if these work, it could be a simple pill that patients can take. We don't have any supply chain issues. We don't have these cold storage issues. Anybody, we can ship it to any remote part of India and patients can take it. So those are some of the things that we are looking at. Secondly, probably the most successful oncology drugs are CAR T therapies. Essentially, you engineer your own T cells, reintroduce them back into patients. Those are extremely expensive. In US, for example, it's about 3 crore per patient per dose. I don't think in India we can even think of treating patients with that kind of expensive drug. What we are doing is, same process to start with. Obviously, we need to get our hands wet. We are trying to bring the cost less than 50 lakh. Again, I think probably only a small, extremely small fraction of patients in India can afford. But that will be a start. What we want to do is right now it's taking cells out of patients, genetically modify in cell culture and then put them back into patients. We are trying to come up with technologies where it's a off-the-shelf technology, then it could be affordable to lot more patients. Obviously, these are very expensive or very long proposition. It takes about 8 to 10 years. But I think if we have some success in India, more and more companies will follow. I hope that not only us, and there are other companies now following this path, but more companies, pretty much everybody who is in generics will also follow this path and make some of these path-breaking technologies that are available for our population, especially rural population, who may not otherwise get these kind of treatments. I think hopefully that covers some of the points you wanted to learn.
Yeah, thank you, Murali. And I'm happy to share that Pulse is also into the space of CAR technologies. We have started this work last 2 years back. We are validating, double CAR.
That's great to know.
Yeah. So now it's in the in vitro validation. So I think there are only few companies, handful of companies,
Right.
so who have gone into phase 1 and phase 2 now. So we are, of course, we are going with a completely new car. But what you are saying is off the shelf,
Right.
allogenic is going to actually
Make a big difference.
make it more, effective, and more number of patients can be reached. So thank you very much. And so now I want to ask a question to Sandeep. Today, when we talk about affordability of generic medicines, one of the biggest challenges is the developmental cost itself. So we need to generate a lot of characterization data. We need to have stability data. We need to have bioavailability data. So all of that has to be generated before we actually introduce the product. Even if it is an old molecule, there was a time where you were just able to borrow the technology from somebody and just simply manufacture it. But today that's not the case. So if you are coming, even if you are a 100 player, you are required to have your own development, and you're required to show this data, and then only you will be permitted to manufacture this product. So how can we innovate and reduce the cost of this development of generic drugs?
Thanks. Basically, different products are developed for different markets. Typically for Europe, it is developed with a European reference product. For US, it is developed with a US reference product. And for India, we just follow any of the reference products. So we have that flexibility. So the best way is the vertical integration. And today, the government per se in Telangana, last year they did try connecting with all the formulation research centers in Hyderabad and outside of Hyderabad, people who have got a ready technology packages who can bring up to the speed. Basically, when we develop a product for US or European market, we develop it all that expensive ingredients. So that we can reduce. And now the government initiative of trying to set up a common lab facilities, that is also reducing the cost of ownership down the line in terms of cost reduction. And then last but not the least, but the vertical integration in terms of API to the formulation. Today the API plays a very crucial role in terms of the costing of the formulation. So any player who's vertically integrated in API is eventually ending up in making a formulation, and a cost-effective formulation. Because I've seen in terms of API also, everybody is trying to backward integrate all the intermediates just to bring in cost efficiency, which has now become the order of the day for practically every API. So that's the way we can reduce in terms of cost of ownership and reducing the cost of the product.
Sandeep, this brings me to the idea that I always say this, in pharma industry, everybody tries to do everything. That is what actually adds to too much of cost. If we can actually focus on few products and, as you said, have a complete integration right from, starting material, key starting material to finished formulation, and then we do it at a scale, I think probably that is when we will be able to achieve
True.
the cost.
It's only the scales which can bring down the cost of the production.
So I think that's one of the strategy that we probably need to adopt for us to make our drugs much more cost efficient. I think every company trying to do hundreds of products is not going to help. So I think again, I would like to take the reference of Dr. Velumani. So it is you have to take the profit not from the customer, you have to take the profit by
on the operational front, basically. Yes.
So how do we get the operational efficiency is only by standardizing and mastering the process. Okay.
It can also start with frugality in terms of your formulation development.
Yeah.
We are following all the possible conventional processes. It also needs some frugal thinking.
Yeah.
So that will also bring in a sea change in terms of our development thought process. Today, I was just talking to Dr. Murali that, green chemistry is evolving, enzymatic chemistry is evolving in terms of APIs. So once we get into the enzymatic process in terms of chemistry, the cost of the production comes down. Our burden to the Mother Earth also reduces in terms of the chemical burden which we are giving in terms of effluents. And basically, most important, the cost of ownership, and you are reducing the impurities in the product, and you are giving a bioavailable product to the patient, which is most sought after for the today's generic scenario.
Yeah, that is where we are depending on China today for all these enzymatic India, we have still not achieved that scale.
True, the PLI scheme of the government is now encouraged many people to start off this enzymatic process, to start thinking at least on those lines. And also fermentation process, which was a farce in our country. Now everyone is now looking at fermentation products, basically to reduce our dependence on China. Now the cost also will go down drastically accordingly.
Yeah. If I have one more question for you. Okay, we covered about development and we talked about the process engineering. In formulation manufacturing, how can we achieve the cost efficiency without compromising on the GMP guidelines or the quality requirements? So do you have some thoughts? So there are some concepts like now today we have a batch manufacturing process. So now people are talking about continuous manufacturing. So would you like to throw some light on that?
Sure. Basically, once again, it's understanding what is it is a gap between a regulation and a practice. So the regulation wants a good practice in place, but as a practice, when you are practicing the same thing for 100 times in a year, so you are actually establishing a trend data. So based on the trend, there is a lot which we can minimize in terms of cost of analysis. Basically, you do the content uniformity analysis. You are holding the batch production for 12 hours, and you are only doing the content uniformity analysis, which is once again a cost. Lot of in-process checks you can reduce. Of course, the US FDA allows all these things once you create a trend, but our Indian regulatory system doesn't accept that, sir. So these are certain small things which need to evolve, and basically all these things evolve based on the trust. So the trust level between a manufacturer and a regulator is now kind of a questionable thing, so which needs to be balanced, and it is a responsibility of the industry to do that.
So I think that way, Sandeep, I would like to say that every country, the local regulatory agencies, they have definitely a more supportive role to play for the industry to grow. When US FDA inspectors come here, they look at Indian manufacturers a different view, and when they audit their own local facilities, they have a different view. They have more belief in their own local units. When they come here, they have more suspicion. Therefore, they ask you to generate more data, more controls. There's a kind of endless controls are being introduced into the system, which is actually increasing the complexity of manufacturing, and that's where the cost. So now, sir, I would like to have one specific question. When we talk about accessibility today to the rural markets, one of the biggest challenge that what we see is the supply chain efficiency. The kind of the facilities that we have in the rural market in terms of our the storage facilities or the transportation facilities. So most of the time, our drugs are needed to be handled carefully. They are needed to be handled at a particular temperature as defined. So when we see in the rural market, the way they are being stored, the way they are being handled, sometimes it does not conform to those standards. And I have practically seen in some of the rural markets when I was driving down to my native place. So when I had to stop at some village and ask for a painkiller, so I saw that these strips are completely faded. Forget about the tablet inside. The strips itself, the foil itself, the printing itself is completely faded. The way they're being stored is so, not acceptable. How can we improve our regulatory monitoring, and how can we really bring about a little change there? Yeah.
So, okay, no?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, I don't know about that. Today, this function is conducting here. Late yesterday night only I come to know that that panel discussion is here. Then I, as a representative of Karnataka, as a drug regulatory, as a drug controller, I was here. Thank you very much for my panelists here. One is Rambabu sir and Dr. Murali Ramchandra and Sandeep Varalwar.
Yeah, Sandeep
yes,
sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much once again. here is, as the regulator, I am telling you that storage condition is one of the major problem for us now. Definitely I agree that. What happened now, here it is in India, obviously we are using for Drugs and Cosmetics Act, Central Act now. Whichever state is implicated that the act now, which is Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and rules they are under now. So under this circumstance, we have the guidelines to how to store the drugs now. And in rural area, what happened now? That is a truth that some of the strips are broken, some strips are overwritten, and some strips are, it is not properly seen now. Because of that, the storage conditions only now. And here it is what happened now. Here it is in the government itself is taken the responsibility for supplying few drugs to drugs as generic drugs to government hospitals now.
Yeah.
As well as another supply chain was to concern private medical stores as well as hospitals and other charitable hospitals like this now. So here it is, you know that India is one of the, basically it is above 35 to 40 degrees centigrade temperature is there now. Under this circumstance, we always see that whatever the licenses granted to the medical shops where we can going to see the facilities, how they are going to give now. Probably all might have been seen the labels on that. The storage conditions are always there's printed on that now. As per the norms of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, store in cool place, store in cold place, everything is there, sir. But still, unfortunately or fortunately, that urban to rural area, it will take time to go now. I don't know how they are going to send it now. There is a lot of supply chain supply chain. There is a difficulties are there now. So we once the supply chain should be done in proper way now, then there is no question of that the deterioration of drugs now. Another thing is, so vaccines is one of the most important now. And even though that vaccine, it is to be actually given to the rural place only now. Because actually what happened now, obviously whenever the storage conditions comes now, of vaccines, suppose insulin, it is one of the major drug for in Indian people now. What happened now, they are going to give medical shop, they are keeping in 2 to 8 degrees centigrade in refrigerator only now. Not much that, but what the rural people are, even though doesn't have that refrigerator also no, they are keeping as it is in the normal temperature only. This is the major problem for is that now. So under this circumstance, we required to give training for the rural area people now. For again the training give the rural area now, then again we dependent on the pharmacist only now.
Yeah.
The pharmacists take the responsibilities. Our sirs told me that for 100,000, sir, 1,001 nurse now. I request you, sir, where the government hospitals are there, where the multi super specialty hospitals are there, minimum one pharmacist should be there, sir. So unfortunately, this is not happening, sir. I will tell frankly now. So in government hospitals now, primary health centers, one pharmacist is going for 3 hospitals now. How can he give the service now, service oriented now? This is the problem is going on there. So that's why the regulators, my close friends, regulators are here now. So many pharmacists are available in India now, but still we are not giving the job opportunity, sir. This is one of the criteria, sir. One of the problem we are facing in India, not in India, everywhere, sir. Everywhere this is a problem is there, sir. So we have to sort out the things, then we'll come back to the further course of future, how to store the drugs now.
Sir, in fact, so thank you very much, sir, for accepting the reality. So that is the reality that we are in, and now we need to really, from here, we need to improve. It's not only about the pharmacy shop, how it is being maintained.
Yes, sir.
Our wholesale network, our stockists, our distributors, our C&Fs, the way our drugs are being stored there, it is absolutely not acceptable. I have traveled to many countries in Africa. I have traveled to many countries in Southeast Asia. Even in the smallest country like Sri Lanka, the kind of warehousing facilities that they have for storing the pharmaceutical products is not comparable with what we do in India. In India, we focus heavily, even the regulators focus heavily on the manufacturing side, but when it comes to your product is spending only 1 month in the plant, remaining 23 months it is there outside the plant. Now, how we are regulating those things, how they are being handled, if we don't do it, so our spurious drugs percentage cannot be controlled. Sir, all the time blaming the manufacturer alone is not going to be sufficient.
Sir, every time is one of the major things going on now. Whenever the problem is going on there now, I don't blame any doctor here, kindly regret that. Whenever the problem is going on there, the patient died or due to EDR, whatever the reactions is happened now, everybody is putting on blame on the drug only now. That comes to only the manufacturing units only now. Honestly speaking, we are going to conduct the investigation, sir. We are going to draw the legal sample, particularly that particular product. When we are testing now, that is to be standard quality now. We cannot do anything for that now. When we are going to give the submit to the government, yes, this is a standard quality now. This is the problem we are facing now. Then, and again, sir told me that storage, sir, my sincere request to, whenever the cold storage required drugs are there, no, you have to provide the supply chain for small, that packages are there, no, sir, for providing the small.
Actually, the problem is not with the cold storage. As you said, the vaccines and all, they know that it has to be kept in the refrigerator 2 to 8 degrees.
Yes.
The problem is about the so-called room temperature, so-called, store in cool and dark place. People do not understand what is cool and dark place. For somebody, 30 degrees is a cool and dark place. For somebody, it is 25 degrees. So that is not well defined. Whereas in other countries, it is very specifically mentioned. And if that pharmacist is not maintaining the temperature, he is he's punished.
That's why, sir, pharmacist is more required for training now. Here it is rather than the public now. First, pharmacists should know the things, and then we will motivate to the people in the rural areas now.
Yes. I actually have a thought which I wanted to just reflect on. Now, one of the solutions that we could think of for this solution is for us to really change this the whole infrastructure and behavior, it's going to take time. Can we actually work on Amazon kind of model? Today, the e-pharmacies have come. E-pharmacies are much more responsible, much more professional. They know, they will not deviate the rules. Now, the challenge is how do we deliver these, the drugs, one small prescription of 500 rupees, 300 rupees, whether e-pharmacy can deliver to a remote location is a challenge. Now, what Amazon has done, I was amazed to see that in each village, there is a nodal agent. Now that person will sit there, whoever needs anything from Amazon, he will place the order, he will show it in the TV. This is the product, this is how it is going to look, and this is going to be the cost. He will, place the order on behalf of that, person, and then that it will come as a bulk, like maybe 10 people order will be supplied in one go, and it will be redistributed to those people. Can we do something like in pharma, whether your regulations will allow that?
No, sir. No. I will tell you why. Yes, sir, here it is what happened now in India. It is a bigger nation now. Around 125 crore population is there now. So many workers are there now. Here it is what happened now. In throughout India, online pharmacy, e-pharmacy is not given a permission. Still it is under draft stage is there. The Drug Controller General India is not permitted to sell online now. For example, you have told me that, sir, that Amazon, they have supplying now. Amazon, and so many advertisements are there, sir. 1mg is there, and Pharm Easy is there. And even the Amitabh Bachchan is also giving some advertisement in TVs also now. Yeah, Medibest is also there. Sir, honestly, I will tell you that Karnataka is taken so much initiations to not to sell on online pharmacy. For example, I will tell you, sir, one of the chemist and drug association given complaint to me. On that basis, we have conducted test purchase. So through Amazon only, sir. Actually, I'm telling you, I'm telling you that Amazon is supplied. One prescription is uploaded on the computer, then Amazon is supplied to one of the person now. That is also NDPS drugs. Narcotic and psychotropic drugs, they have supplied. NGIT is supplied. Then we conducted investigation against the whose that prescription is given and where the supply is given and the supply made by the Amazon only. Then we booked again the Amazon also, sir. We filed a case in the Honorable Court. The court cannot, the Honorable Court is cannot taken the cognizance because which is comes under IT Act. Then we lost that case here now. Again we went to High Court also in Karnataka. There is also same things happened, sir. Because here what the Honorable Court's verdict is saying that he is the third party. He is one party, he is giving the prescription, he is supplying to another party. Only the Amazon is the service provider. Swiggy is supplying food, no? Like that only. So Amazon is the service provider. We cannot prosecute that particular person. He is only supplied from one place to another place. And again we went to Supreme Court also, sir. Supreme Court, sir, initially the registry should not taken, even though he was not ready to see that, what is this? This is Amazon drug. This is supplied on online. Hey, I don't have time, no. I don't want to send it to the Honorable Judge also, no. They rejected there only, no. So this is going on there, but unfortunately, so we are filing the cases now, but unfortunately we are losing here now in Karnataka. Even though before that, the Cloudtail, one of the pharma, one of the service provider is there. Initially is taken as a wholesale license now, but he started on selling online. Then our assistant drug controller is taken as a licensing authority is taken is the ex parte decision by cancelling his license. Then he went to appeal to the principal secretary now. That case is still pending. So we are doing now. But sir, I will tell you that so far, even though we are requesting Drug Control General India, Dr. Vijay Somani sir also, no, sir, to look into the matter that whether the online pharmacy is given to everybody. Why only the few people only, no? Even though it is given to Amazon also, even it is given to the smaller medical shops also, no? That is our priority. But the draft is still pending now. When the final draft comes, no, sir, then we will take up the issue.
It is going to happen eventually. We can't stop it.
Yes.
So that is what the customer demand is. So
yes,
that I think, as you said, yes, we need to have a proper regulations and simplified regulations. That is one thing. But then this is how we can actually solve this problem of storage and all that, the transportation and all that. So that's what I feel. So this is one thing. The second thing about accessibility, we talk about distribution and supply chain. The second thing about the accessibility is about many doctors practicing in the rural markets. They're not even aware of lot of new generic drugs, the new generation generic drugs that have come into the market. They are still prescribing the age-old drugs, like those conventional antibiotics or your immunosuppressant, what do you call, all your, what is that, your, even hormones also they prescribe very age old. So there are much better drugs that are available, but they are not aware. But I think our pharmaceutical companies are not able to reach there because it is becoming very expensive for us to have such a large field force and reach out to those places, except one or two companies like Mankind who made that kind of experiment with a large field force of almost 5,000 people. They could reach out to more rural markets. But none of the Indian pharmaceutical companies are even going to those places and promoting these drugs. A lot of new drugs are still not known to those doctors. So how do we solve that problem? I think probably can you answer
Sir,
that?
I will add another thing. Sir, here it is what happened now. That API, you told me, sir, earlier, the raw material itself is one of the difficulty for Indian industry, pharma industry, because we are dependent. Yes, we are still dependent on 80% of the raw material is coming from China only, no, sir, and Eastern Europe now. Only 20% we are manufacturing now. Until and unless the stakeholders should take the responsibility to manufacture the raw material in India only, then we'll sort out the things only. No, otherwise we still dependent on China. They are setting the price, and for our needy, we are purchasing from them. This is one of the major problem is going on here, sir.
I think, sir, that part is now already being addressed through PLI scheme.
Yes.
The PLI scheme has clearly understood the gap, how much we are importing from China. So that much they have asked our manufacturers to come forward and set up the facility, so that now in next 2 years' time, once the PLI scheme is implemented, so we want to become 100% self-reliant. So all these enzymatic products like cephalosporins and all that, so they are now given a high thrust area.
Yes,
so I think there are about some 53 odd drugs have been identified. So that is also going to be solved, sir. I think India definitely we will, because China is no longer competitive, cost competitive. So it is better that we make our own drugs. So that part I think will be handled.
Yes,
so
sir.
One of the major challenge for the rural, healthcare deliveries.
Sir, again here it is, how to reach the generic medicine should be manufactured by the SME industries only now. Yeah. That is one of the major problem for now. The multinational companies are going for only branded drugs now. They have their own patent. They are going to fix the prices as per the NPPA now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Then Ministry of Pharmaceuticals, Petrochemicals Department, and one of the Honorable Minister from the Karnataka only, Bhagoji sir, he's taking a lot of initiations to take up the prices variations now. So that is initiation is going on there, sir. But still, sir, again we dependent on you people only now to manufacture the generic drugs and to supply to Janaushadhi Kendras now.
Sir,
it is one of the it is one of the
I know.
It is one of the Honorable Prime Minister's dream scheme, that one. Around in Karnataka, around 950 Janaushadhi Kendras available in entire Karnataka, but still, unfortunately, I say that few drugs are not available. Again, one drug is available in Janaushadhi, 2 drugs are not available. Again, they are going for the private medical shop. This is very unfortunate. It is going on there, sir. My sincere request to all the manufacturer now to go for Janaushadhi, go for generic manufacturing drugs, sir. Then we'll come out the solution for that now.
Yeah, thank you.
For the poor people.
Thank you, sir. So any specific questions from the audience? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for this chance to ask questions from. Sir, actually, we're just talking about this, about the generic and the branded drugs. So right now, as far as I know and I understand, that the generics and the branded drugs are manufactured under the same constitution, we say pharmacopoeia. And yes, of course, there are some fishes in the pond which spoils it. But overall, I would say that generics and branded drugs, quality-wise, are of the same standards mostly. So as sir, you were saying that in the rural areas that the new innovative therapeutics drugs, and they're not reaching because they're still they're still using like 50-year-old drugs and manufacturing that. And in the cities, we are having a main problem, like the doctors don't have faith in the generic drugs, of course, for the betterment of the patients. And majorly the generics are given to the patients in rural areas. So this is the problem which we are facing in the generic industry. So how do you suggest we can overcome this, that generics can be used in cities as well and also can enter the critical care segment and the extensive care segment?
Yeah, I think the solution is very simple. even in cities, the trend of generics is catching up slowly. But yes, they are more skeptical about generics because there is a lot of confusion created about the quality being different from branded to generic. So how it can happen is, I have seen in some of the countries like Philippines, Philippines, I've seen one company, Unilabs, they manufacture almost 500 generic drugs with one single brand name. I mean, there is one umbrella brand, but the generic name. So they do lot of, kind of awareness, lot of quality awareness among the patient population, that these are the measures that we take, and therefore, if it is this companies or this umbrella brand generic, you are assured of. So how the patient will take the decision of buying a generic of a X company or Y company, he should be aware. Today he is not aware. So therefore he is confused. So now it becomes again our responsibility to do that kind of awareness. Yes. Okay. So then and then we also have to educate him. Now I think some companies are trying to do what kind of quality measures they are being followed. So today, as you said, we have so many pharmaceutical companies in India. So it becomes really difficult for the regulatory system to properly regulate everything. It has to be self-regulated. I think we ourselves have to regulate, and we have to take the accountability, and because we are in a more responsible position, so therefore we have to self-regulate, and we have to make sure that we roll out the products which are meeting all those quality standards, and then we have to educate the end user about the actual benefit that is going to them. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I think his question is, his question is a bit differently it should be put. One is generic, another one is
branded.
It's wrong. Not generic, or it's patented.
Yeah.
Your generic should become branded and unbranded. Because common man wants branded.
Exactly.
Is that clear? So the nomenclature itself, one is branded, another is generic, has to go. And in the generic itself, there should be a branded, and everybody try to brand because branded only common man wants.
Yes.
He wants branded at a generic cost. That is his demand, right? And you need to work on it. Having answered that, I have a very one question for the moderator and one question for the government officer. The first question is government officer. You can say yes, no, maybe. Will these e-pharmacies do good in the long run?
No, sir.
No. Okay. No. Yes said no. Right. That's why I said yes, no, maybe. I thought he will tell maybe. I'm the single largest investor in pharmacy. That is why I ask you. I'm not disappointed, but it will. One day you will tell it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming to the moderator, all you three are manufacturing, right?
Yes.
And all the three of you are selling branded, right? And branded you are selling at a higher cost because you incur a lot of expenditure in creating the product, right? If a government gives you a lump sum and lump sum of money and tells you, now you produce it generic, will you do?
Yeah, it depends.
And you can also say yes, no, maybe.
No. Yes, I would say yes.
Yes, yeah, it's important. I must tell you, the PET CT is a technology, even CT, MRI, there are only 4 guys in the world ruling. All 4 have clear understanding, don't go below the rate. And that is what is making PET CT $1 million or $1.5 million. And trust me, if the machine is there, it should not cost more than 1,500 for an MRI. It's only because the capex is very heavy. Every patient is loaded the capex. Because their research is so heavy, they are putting it on every patient. I think government should take care of giving them a big money, and even for these inventions like PET CT, MRI and CT, government should purchase that by paying a big sum. How big is not a problem for a government. Even if it is small, it is too big for a customer.
Yes.
Medical Council of India or now National Medical Commission always writes in its draft that the doctor should prescribe generic drugs. But then they only write, but there is no regulation. There is no breach of ethics or any punishment to the doctors for not writing generics. So if we really want that the generic should come, so these people should sit with the government, and then the government will come with some regulations, and ultimately the generic will come.
Sir, as far as I know, the Honorable Health Ministry is already initiated. It is not a regulation. One letter is issued to all the government doctors now to write generic medicine only now. But only that written writing letter is there now. But you know that
happen eventually. Eventually it will happen.
So far it is not happened now.
It happened in many countries. It's going to happen in
It is happening.
Okay. So thank you very much, and it was a yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sorry.
I am doing the postman's job now.
Yeah.
Just I am passing my patient's question to you.
Okay.
Sir, we have 9,000 registered diabetic patients in our hospital.
Right.
We are treating them with generic drugs. What is happening now is, when we start giving the drugs, patients used to accept it with cordial manner. Now they have got some resistance, telling that this drug is not responding properly. The same brand, same drug brand name, they are ready to accept it. I want answer from you all, because you are the manufacturing hub.
So,
please tell me
yeah,
the
yes, sir.
quality of the generic drug versus branded drugs.
Sir, again, it depends on. Yeah.
So, sorry, this is actually people are completely misunderstanding, even though many doctors, very well qualified, scientists, many people are there, but I'm a scientist. So, generic term is, one scientist makes a synthetic route for 10 steps or 5 steps, whatever it may be. He files the patent. Once files the patent, the government will approve 10 years or 12 years, it depends upon that worth of the drug or necessity, volume of the drug. They give the time 12 years or 10 years or 15 years. They will fix and they will give the patent. The formula is same. During the time, only limited companies, whoever the discoverer, he will give to some people, they will make, they will sell the medicine. After patent expires, then only the drug is called generic. Everyone in the country, the board you see generic medical shop. Everyone is generic is cheap like that. For that, I have answered that sir asked, that I am telling. No generic term. Either patent, after patent expires, then only the term is called generic. But why? Drug master, that drug inspector will not allow even branded is something and generic is something. Tomorrow he will go and then he will catch that manufacturing company. He will shut down the company. Anybody is making that, okay, less than the quantity is required, drug master file as per the government, IP, Indian Pharmacopoeia rules, according to these rules, we can tell that is correct. IP grade is 99 is enough. USP, US Pharmacopoeia guidelines, 99.9 is required. That is a good, better than IP. JP, Japan Pharmacopoeia, USFD, like that. Those are the different angles. Like that, 0.001 impurities also not be there for USFDA, because their concern is like that. Okay, I am in Japan. The water is very sweety, very 100% pure. Even you take any fruits also very, that is thing. But here completely in the country, it is the wrong concept even the scientific community and doctors also. Generic is different and branded is different. Branded is the topi. What he is adding, that thing, this thing, that thing, this thing he is adding, and he is giving to doctor something. Doctor is writing always, he will forget generic nothing. He will write only branded. Who is the brand? If you create something, you will the brand. So, for example, I am telling, so formula is same, everything is same, but why you are distinguished? Generic is creating by a businessman to get more money. I am telling in this country.
I'll not agree with you, sir. I'll just come there.
This is the
I'll not agree
point.
with you.
This country, one drug is 1 lakh rupee there means on a hormone or injection. In here is 20,000. 20,000 I am giving means maybe client also telling this is generic. So
No.
this distinction is there. The basic concept
I'll just answer your this thing more clearly. I'll tell you what you said, the concept of brand and generic. Unless you have a unique characteristics in the product, you have no right to call it a brand, because the brand is the one which has to have a unique characteristics. Your name, you have a unique character. My name, Rambabu, I have a unique character. Similarly, the brand means the product should be unique. The moment it is equivalent, it is not supposed to have a brand name. That's agreed. But this US, Europe, all these markets, matured markets, once the patent expires, 10 to 20 other companies will produce the product which is equivalent to the innovator, and they are not given the brand name. Even if you want to keep a brand name, they will not allow you. Today, all our companies, Indian companies go into US market, they cannot keep a brand name. They will be just called Lipitor generic. The doctor, when he writes, Lipitor generic manufactured by Dr. Reddys. Dr. Reddys cannot keep another brand name there. This is what is practiced in the matured markets. But in India, why we have been keeping these brand names is because though there are rules, our regulatory system has not been able to really control, what exactly is being followed. So therefore, Cipla follows certain standards, some other company follows certain other standards. So therefore, Cipla has a right to claim that their product is superior. And it is in real terms, it is superior. Maybe in, decimals. Maybe as you said, 98.5%.
officially not written anywhere that
It is not right.
Well, he will tell that you are telling something.
No.
That must while you ask that anywhere branded is written, nothing is written. If you make the code, it will become branded. I can create a brand. Myself is I have came in my investors weighing right. I came. That's what Dr. Reddys is putting the brand only.
No. That's a very, very vague statement.
Sir, if I may interrupt, I think you can take this discussion into lunch,
That case,
and
you
both
should
of
not
you
look
can
for a
have this.
branded water. Then you should look for a plain water.
Let us close this with a statement.
Yeah.
Let us just try to close this. Sir, as a clinician, what we understand for any molecule, that you have a raw material.
Yeah.
You produce a molecule, whatever formula is that. And then in this purification process, as you said, somebody wants 90. Indian pharmacopoeia, I think, allows up to 90%.
No, there are limits. There are 95 also. 95 also.
95.
Even
Like
90.
95.
In some cases, 90.
That, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
But the gold standard, the original research will take 99.5%.
Yeah.
Just give, say example, he's saying 99 and 95. Why my patient should get that 0.9% impurity? I'm not interested in giving.
Correct.
I want
Then you pay
100%
for it.
impurity.
Then you pay for it.
Sorry? No, sir. I'm not denying from that. Purity test is there. I'm talking about impurity. Why 0.5% impurity also I should give to my patient? No. Again, you are taking mistaken, sir. I'm saying, are you giving a molecule to original researcher, equivalent? Or generic molecule to original? If it is not there, why should my patient take that 0.1% of impurity also?
Absolutely.
I'm not interested.
Absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct.
I'm not interested.
Yeah,
if you are producing generic, irrespective of cost, give me a molecule which is equivalent to original researcher.
That is not being followed by us because.
And that's what the problem is.
It is not a regulation in India.
Yes. Sir, मैं आपको deny नहीं कर रहा हूँ. Are you giving me a molecule which is equivalent net to original researcher? Are you just give me answer yes or no?
Sir, this is, if I may interrupt, sir, I think this is a very interesting discussion, no doubt, and I totally agree that doctors and pharma companies are not going to agree on this, or not in this forum. Definitely, the intent was. So one second. So the only intent was that how do we make it more accessible, affordable to rural people? And I think they have the answers on a lot of these questions that we are raising around the percentage of purity, etc. I would suggest that we take this discussion off. Yes, sir. You want to make a last comment, and then we'll close this because we need to move on with time also.
Can I use Hindi?
Yeah, yes, sir.
My English is not good. सर ऐसा है कि जो भी ड्रग बनता है, चाहे वो रॉ मटेरियल है, एपीआई है, चाहे फार्मूलेशन है, वो एज पर फार्माकोपिया ही टेस्ट होता है. उस फार्माकोपिया में सारे स्टैंडर्ड हैं. उसके हिसाब से जैसे इंडियन फार्माकोपिया है, ब्रिटिश फार्माकोपिया है, यूएसपी फार्माकोपिया है, और आज हमारा इंडियन फार्माकोपिया काफ़ी आगे है. और उसके अंदर सारे टेस्ट के लिए सारे ही टेस्ट होते हैं. उसमें रेडिस सब्सटेंस वगैरह सब कुछ होता है. और चाहे आप ब्रांडेड वाला हो, चाहे वो सेम हो, ऐसा है अगर एक सिप्रोफ्लोक्सासिन है तो ऐसा नहीं है कि एक ही कंपनी बना रही है, उसको हिंदुस्तान में 5000 कंपनी बना रही है. ठीक है ना. तो अगर एक के ऊपर छोड़ दिया जाए, हम कहें एक ही बनाएगा, सबका सेम बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता. सभी पेशेंट के लिए भी आप समझ लीजिए, अगर हमारे पेशेंट भी डिफरेंट है और हर एक के ऊपर असर भी सेम नहीं होता है. हर एक की बॉडी का अलग अलग मेटाबॉलिज्म होता है.
नहीं, what you said is right, sir. आप जो बोल रहा है ये एकदम ठीक है. नहीं
सर, हेलो.
Yeah.
A molecule, when you are saying generic, it can be respected. There is a formula. I want exactly same thing what original structure has given. That's it.
Sir, same thing, sir. I totally get your point. We will take this discussion off the stage, please, sir. We need to also keep track of time. So, in interest of time, I would say we will move on. Thank you very much to all our panelists for taking our time, making the discussion interesting. Thank you for all the wonderful participation. We'll move on to the next one. There's a short audio visual, and then there is a panel discussion. So, Vidya sister, if you want to. Sir, please, panelists, please stay on stage. We have
just
some
have a quick
mementos.
felicitation round. Thanks to one and all for participating so actively in this particular session. We now request Srimati Shobana Gupta, former CFO for FedEx for over 100 countries, and currently serving as a financial advisor and mentor for the Prashanti Balamandir Trust, to hand over a token of our appreciation and gratitude to all our panelists. Dr. Murali Ramachandra. Mr. Sandeep Varalvar, Mr. Bhagoji Khanapure, and our moderator, Mr. K.V. Rambabu. Thanking all the panelists and the moderator once again for this interesting session.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next session quickly, and you can catch up with the panelists off the stage, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're now in the third panel session. The topic is preventive healthcare strategies to reduce cost burden on healthcare system. I'm Bharani Prasad. I head a preventive healthcare program of our trust. I think Dr. Velumani has set the context and the foundation right for all the sessions. His focus on frugal innovation, scale, cost effectiveness is food for thought for all of us on the way forward, especially in the preventive healthcare space. Sir, your special mention about having 10 crore diabetic patients and half of them not being aware is a huge opportunity for the preventive healthcare to reach the doorsteps of people. So one of the programs that our trust has pioneered or has been working from the last few years is how do we make good nutraceutical products as a preventive strategy at the doorsteps of our rural population. How do we make this accessible, affordable? And what we have done over the last few years is there's something called SciSure that we have come up with, which we have taken to about 5 lakh school children. The idea was simple: to address malnutrition, to address hidden hunger in the way what our urban counterparts are doing. By every child at home today, we give a health drink in the morning, Horlicks or Boost. It's a different question that you can contest the percentage of sugars, but still they have some role to play in addressing the hidden hunger especially. So our idea was to take this SciSure to the rural hinterlands, and how do we address the hidden hunger that is there among our school children, among toddlers, among pregnant women, and among the growing up toddlers. So with this regard, we have a short video on the preventive healthcare strategies that our trust has been working on. So there are 3 programs that we are going to highlight in the video. One is the Arogya Vahini program in Northeast, the Annapurna breakfast program for schools, where we are reaching out to about 5 lakh children through Sai Shah. So can we have the video, please?
এখান থেকে চিকিৎসা কেউ পেতে গেলে তাকে মিনিমাম নীলরতন মেডিকেল ওই দিকেই যেতে হবে, দীর্ঘ রাস্তা অতিক্রম করে এখানে বড় ডেফিসিট জায়গাটা। আরোগ্য বাহিনী দীর্ঘদিন আমাদের এখানে প্রায় প্রতিটা কিংবা 200-র কাছাকাছি এরকম প্রতি মাসে যে মানুষগুলোর হাতে যে পরিমাণ ওষুধ তুলে দিচ্ছে,
অপারেশন এখানে এসে আমি খুব খুশি। আমার কেউ তো নেই, এই বাকিরা সবাই করে দিয়েছে। আমার খুব খুশি আমি কার যেন দেখতে পাই, আমি খেতে যেন খেতে পারি, এইটাই আমি চাই। আমার সব দিন তো কেউ দিতে পারবে না।
There have been no opportunity for people to even cook in their houses. So actually when we've started of setting these relief kitchens, even the trucks could not reach these places in the interior belts.
Nutrition, let no child go to school hungry ever, is the vision of the Annapurna Morning Nutrition Program. School-going children in rural India and the needy sections of the society are nurtured through the Annapurna Morning Nutrition Program. This unique morning nutrition program was started in July 2012 by a few volunteers. Every single morning, over 503,000 children across 6,477 centers in 20 states and 3 union territories are being served their morning nutrition.
With nearly 17% of the world's population, we are home to a quarter of the world's hungry. 3,000 children die every day from poor diet-related illness. And no surprises here. These problems are more pronounced in rural India, where poverty and poor access to health supplements are undeniably rampant. While the governments are doing their best to combat this situation, it requires the joining of forces between policymakers and the people of our country to find sustainable solutions. We present to you Sai Sure, a multi-nutrient supplement program for expectant mothers, toddlers and growing children in rural India. Easy to implement, economical and effective, Sai Sure ably complements and easily integrates with the various nutrition programs of the state and the central governments. Launched through the Annapurna Breakfast Program and Divine Mother and Child Health Program, Sai Sure has seen very encouraging results in terms of ease of use, scalability, and most importantly, in terms of improved health parameters of the recipients. Sai Sure is given totally free of cost to its many recipients and offers a good alternative to the many branded and pricey health supplements that are available in the market. Sai Sure formulations are manufactured in FDA-approved World Health Organization certified facility in line with the highest quality standards followed by global products. Healthy mothers make healthy children, and healthy children make happy children, leading India to its happily and healthily ever after. Sai Sure.
There are so many anchors attached to preventive healthcare, like making diagnostic facilities available in rural areas, making nutraceuticals easily available, and creating that awareness in rural areas. Like this, there are multiple anchors. So we would like to have a brief discussion through our esteemed panelists on how can we democratize all of these things, especially on the thought that all these while, if you look at the last 70 years, malnutrition has been the fundamental responsibility of the government. But today we are standing with India's growth. Why should it be the responsibility of the government itself? Why can't it be a model like how Sir has created a wonderful model of democratizing access to diagnostic things? Why can't we create a model where nutraceuticals or addressing malnutrition through products can be democratized and made available, creating that awareness to the huge population that is there? So regarding this, would like to have a brief panel discussion, and I have three esteemed panelists and a moderator. First is we welcome Adarsh Holowanahalli, who is the CTO at Phillips. He is an innovator by nature, has contributed as a consultant, chief technology officer and CEO, and even as an investor in startups. For more than a decade now, his main focus has been to touch millions of lives by reimagining healthcare and bridging the rural-urban divide. Currently, he is leading a coronary artery disease venture at Phillips and is working on several point-of-care diagnostic inventions. We welcome you, sir. Second is our very own family member, Subhajit Roy Mukherjee, who is the founder of Sadakshetra Healthcare and a public health expert. You would have already seen him in the video. He is a man on ground who's done amazing voluntary work, leading a group of about 50, 60 people, if I'm not wrong, in West Bengal. And he is also a social entrepreneur, has set up a low-cost diagnostic center called Sadakshetra in Kolkata. So we welcome you, Subhajit Roy Mukherjee. And third, we have Mr. Madhav Joshi, who has an extensive experience in developing and managing food, healthcare, and nutrition businesses for growth and profitability with leading multinational companies. Specific strengths are in managing a P&L and business operations, developing and implementing strategies for growth in existing and new businesses. Mr. Madhav has served as Senior Director for Internal Medicine and Primary Care in Pfizer, and as a Director for Innovation in About Nutrition International prior to his current assignment. He is currently serving as CEO of India Health Fund, which is a partnership between Tata Trust and the AIDS International Foundation. We welcome you, sir. And our moderator for this session would be Dr. M.P. Kariappa, who is a consultant at Tata Trust. He's a public health specialist with a passion for sustainable health promotion amongst populations. His area of interest and experience are healthcare, behavior change and risk communication, population health, environmental medicine and mass gathering medicine. Formerly, he has served as a Director of Medical Services at the Ministry of Defence in the Indian Army with professional service, delivery and medical care audit, and as a professor at AFMC Pune. Currently, he is a freelancer and a technical advisor to Tata Trust in the health initiatives of the Trust. We welcome you, sir. I leave it to the panel to take forward the discussion. Thank you.
It's always a challenge to figure out where's the on button in this thing. Is it already on? Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to the organizers. And I'm also going to bring out and highlight a fact here that, as you have seen, the time has been compressed and prevention usually gets the last priority. So we are going to talk about preventive healthcare strategies, and the least priority, of course, it's before the lunch. So all that hypoglycemia would be getting to you. You'd be thinking more about the lunch than about the session as such. So this aspect of prevention healthcare strategies, it's very important to consider from the point of view that I'm just going to take a ballpark figure and say 95% of the population of India is healthy, well, unwell, whatever you may call them, but they're not in the healthcare system. Prevention should look at that large population that we have. Now that large population is underserved. In a developing country mindset, Mr. Rambabu talked about matured markets. Now, we cannot look to any Western country for good models of healthcare because they themselves are floundering. They have pathetic healthcare situations abroad in different countries. There is no one model that has worked. And I would like to ask here for all of us to introspect, not just us, the government, everyone. For 70 years, if our beautifully designed healthcare system made by, in the 1940s, the Pore Committee talked about, how healthcare should be designed. Has it worked? If it hasn't worked, why are you doing the same thing again? Now re-christening it, calling it the ABHM, coming up with health and wellness centers, ultimately what is required? I would say, Dr. Velumani brought out so effectively the model that should be thought about. The model that can be thought about for preventive healthcare strategies at a national level at scale is essentially to follow a quasi-commercial model. How does a businessman think? How does a company function? It's all about logistics. It's about HR. It's about attention to time and efficiency. Does a government system do that? It cannot. It's inert. A government system, perforce, because of the way it functions, is inert. So my panelists here with me today, in the few minutes that the organizers have allotted to us, we would like to talk about certain aspects of this. Now, we can start that off by looking at the ecosystem. How is this ecosystem to go? So maybe what we should do first is we can ask Shubhajit. We can ask Shubhajit about, what are your views in this health and wellness center paradigm that has been brought about in the country, where nearly 600,000 of these are going to come up. How can you expand outreach and you combine various approaches at the rural level? Because our target audience is the rural people. Urban people, as someone very wisely brought out, they will survive. They will figure out, they will find a solution. But it's the rural India who needs to be affected.
Thank you, sir. First of all, it's wonderful, and we are very humbled to share the model that has sustained over the period of time, particularly during the COVID times. Overall, Sri Sathya Sai Arogyavani, the outreach initiative of the Sathya Sai Health Mission, has overall conducted 1100 outreach initiatives so far. And most inspiring of all is about the last 2 years, where 333 camps were done during the pandemic times. And when we talk about like the financial risk protection on the mode of the Sustainable Development Goals guidelines, here is where over 1 lakh consultations happening, outreach on ground at the grassroots level, having more strategies and adaptations. Almost 43% of these patients have been as beneficiaries from families who come with a monthly income less than 5,000. Now, as we were speaking about affordability, accessibility, now the out-of-pocket expenses would be more than 1,000 to 1,500 rupees. I'm very thankful to the guidance and support of the Tata Trust, who actually leveraged this platform to scale it up to a level where a conceptualized, more comprehensive kind of a health service was provided and offered at a very grassroots level with fabricated mobile medical vans. Now, when I speak about that, it is a wonderful experience for a beneficiary at a grassroots level to find a hospital service very much at the rural doorsteps. But the second part, which we were discussing about the care continuum part, mainly, as sir was also speaking in the morning, is about the comorbid rural patients who needs to be handheld at every step, where BCC and counseling takes a very, very important, crucial part. Here is where, during lockdown, during the pandemic, there was a consistent support extended through this program. What matters to be more successful from my learning for an outreach program is obviously to get a hybrid model where we would be happy as an outreach program where the percentage of screening to detection and detection to treatment. When I mean that, an outreach program is able to get these screenings and suspects out of this program. We need to get a confirmatory test which needs a higher level of interventions with basic radio imaging, clinical pathology, and then there are applications and linkages which would connect to tertiary care support. So our outreach program would be very much successful, I would believe, from my learnings on ground, wherein all these factors would come into being as a hybrid model where even nutrition plays a very, very important role, where you could see in the videos about during these trying times where primary healthcare needs to be strengthened with nutrition, where it plays a major, major role in combating hunger as well as the ailments which are the main concerns of the trying times during the outbreaks. So what I would want to share is an outreach model should be, as per my thoughts, as an outreach arm to a health and wellness center, which would be well equipped with basic radio imaging, clinical pathology, and as sir was saying about a trained nurse and a pharma, to handle this at a level where confirmatory tests are done, and where even this program has also, handheld and facilitated over 600 referral surgeries, totally free of cost. So when we went through a social audit, in fact, this program had a SROI of 6.55, which was not included with the referral surgeries. The referral surgeries was with the support of the tertiary care setups who came up with their CSRs, as well as counseling happened with the government schemes where rural beneficiaries were guided to avail these government schemes and they benefited. But that is a big outcome where the CHE or the catastrophic health expense of a rural beneficiary availing surgeries worth around 1.5 to 6 lakhs also. We have done pediatric general surgeries, pediatric onco surgeries, pediatric cardiac surgeries, adult cardiac. We have tried to facilitate with these interventions. But what happens as an outcome for these major surgical interventions to take place from the grassroots level of screening, detection, confirmation, and treatment will only be successful where we have an integrated hybrid model of outreach, health and wellness, and tertiary centers coming together to form one system of healthcare delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhajit. That was nicely brought out. Now, the actual thing that we need to look at, these models that we look at, like for example, Shubhajit's model in West Bengal, how easily can it be replicated across the rest of the country? Now, unless when the NGOs and the people who are doing CSR projects work on it as a model form, that okay, when you're looking at reaching out to people, or in a commercial form, if you don't look at replicability, if you don't look at sharing of information or making best practices, it is not going to benefit larger populations than what you would envisage. It'll remain only focused to where you are spending money. So now what I'm going to move on to asking, I'm going to ask Adarsh now, what are your views on the role of technology in strengthening service delivery, in strengthening diagnostics, especially in view of the emerging pandemic of non-communicable diseases that are going to come up in the future? It's already here. Diabetes first, and the coronary artery disease is going to follow subsequently after that. We have a large aging population and mostly an unhealthy, unfit population. When I say unfit, meaning how many of you got up and went for a walk today morning? I didn't. I'm certain all of you can answer that to yourselves, but fitness is a way of life. We may talk of yoga, we may talk of all that stuff, but we essentially are moving toward being an unfit nation. So I'll hand over to Adarsh now.
Thank you. Good to be here. Excuse me. When you talk about preventive technologies, it is better to think of it as a foundation, something that you have to erect from the bottom, right? Since we have less time, I'm just going to speed through this. The first part, what you want is non-invasive technologies, right? We have spent a lot of time going to diagnostic labs, getting tested, taking blood, doing a lot of things that the doctor mandates. But to truly take this technology to the masses, to make it affordable, to make it efficient, you need to be as non-invasive as possible. So what does that mean? I'll give you an example. People here would have heard of the technology PPG, photoplethysmography, that's on your smartphone camera or wearables. Today, you're able to diagnose your vitals, heart rate, respiratory rate, and so on from these devices. But some of us know that you could do blood glucose. That will probably be available within a year on the phone, right? Just from your camera, doing spectral analysis on your finger. You can do BP today. I know a couple of companies out there already patenting these methods about doing BP. So just imagine the fact that probably around 50% of the time, you're able to just sit at home, use your phone, whether it be the villages or urban centers, and you're able to do a lot of these measurements where your doctor, whoever is, wherever he is able to take the first call, which we call an initial diagnosis or a screening, if you will, right? So there are tons of devices like this. There are biosensor strips that you can use very systematically. There's a very interesting company, a startup that I don't want to name here, but they have a metabolic patch. You can put it on your body and it will instantly tell you how much digestive secretion is there going on in your body. It'll tell you what your sugar level is. You ate a pizza and it went up by 200. You'll know now what is happening. And a host of other parameters, right? Very fascinating, but non-invasive is the key. That is the first step. Now, having done that, the second part of this is self-care, and Dr. spoke about it, right? Every individual needs to be empowered. And the empowerment comes from information, but not information from the way all of us consume. Information has to be very commonsensical, right? An individual cannot understand abstracts, papers, research, all of that doesn't happen. What you need to do is colloquially create indices or data points for an individual to be able to understand. If I tell you your BP is 140, who cares? Nobody cares. And I met people in villages where their BP has been 160 for 60 days or 1 year or 2 years or whatever it is. Hardly matters, right? So you need to be able to explain to him or her what this data means over a period of time, where it is headed, what are these trends, progressions, how do you compare with the population, how do you compare with the same set of people that you represent. You are a 50-year-old diabetic, you might be in the peak of your health, you might be an Usain Bolt of diabetics, but you need that explained very colloquially. So the self-care starts with the fact that you have to be able to engage people with data very colloquially, very commonsensically, and be able to show them where they are, right? And that goes a long way. And there are tons of technologies out there, companies that are trying to solve this non-invasively and invasively as well, including your diagnostic results. The third part of it is point of care. And you'll notice that the point of care has evolved quite interestingly. Started from within hospital, moved out of hospitals, moved to PHCs, CHCs, and so on and so forth. But the evolution has been steady but slow, right? And it has been slow because it started from the fact that value products, then you came to miniaturization, and then you connected care. So there is an ecosystem out of which this evolution has been happening. It's more inside out, right? So the devices became different, but the expertise remained constant. You required expertise at all points. Device kept on changing. You could apply it everywhere. That doesn't solve the problem. So you need an outside-in solution. You need assisted point of care to be the mandatory way of going into the market. What does that mean? Phillips has a product called Lumify. Lumify is an ultrasound portable, and the portable device can be used by anybody, right? But positioning the transducer is an intricate thing. It's not an easy thing. It depends on your condition. So what Phillips has done is to be able to give you guides for a specific protocol that you want to run, where you don't even have to be experienced. You can just run the transducer and it will autocorrect which way you're moving it. And this now data can be relayed to somebody else who can actually give you the inference. There's a company called Ultramix that Phillips has tied up with, which does automatic inferencing of your motion picture coming from the ultrasound. And so many, there are so many examples of this. I know a startup company which has an ECG where you wear a vest, right? And your caregiver, it could be your wife, your mother, whoever it is, wear a vest, and it has certain guidelines, and you have a 2-lead ECG device that you can run in a specific pattern, and it will give you a 12-lead ECG output, right? I think those are the kind of technologies that you really require in this space. The fourth aspect of it is business models. And everybody here understands money makes this whole world go around. So if tomorrow, if you had an ECG pharmacist who took your ECG, a doctor got an inference from the cloud, and then a specialist did the diagnosis, and then your prescription traveled automatically because of all of this that was done, then you essentially created a new business model with completely different stakeholders than what used to happen earlier. If you had your bank come and say, I can screen you for your CVD profile, even though he was not equipped to do so earlier, but now he is because of the device and some clinical support at the back, then you've changed access points in this universe, right? You don't have to go to a hospital. Maybe it'll be your school or college or wherever it is. And so there are some excellent examples of how these technologies have changed and created new business models that is super important. Today you have an ECG that can be done at 20 rupees a pop. Who would have ever thought of that a few years ago, right? Because you can have today diagnostic labs that are selling, and by this I mean radiology machines, which are selling pay-per-use business models. So you pay per scan. The lab owner pays per scan for the thing done on the patient, right? They're all fascinating models. All of these are what is required. Fifth is engagement, and I can't really stress this enough. Whether it's the doctor, whether it's the patient, whether it's your caregiver, they need to be engaged. And all of these technologies have to plug people into the system. They have to be able to trigger when conditions are reached, when data points are reached, where people can step in and either give you advice, give you timely referrals, can give you advocacy, education, and so much more, right? And probably the last part of it is the fact population. India forgets that we are a 100 crore population. Why do we keep treating individuals? Doesn't make sense to me. Technology has gone way far ahead, right? In COVID, if you remember, we did a lot of pool testing. So you'd go do 1,000 people and then figure out what's the prevalence in that sample and then come back down to the individual. Admittedly, that was very efficient, but maybe a little crude at that point of time. But it was the best we could do, and we will get better as we go forward, right? But you need to be able to classify people at very broad scales. What kind of a risk, what kind of a care plan works for you, who needs to be involved, what are the devices that need to be plugged in, and how do you connect all of them? And I keep coming back to the connect, and Dr. Velumani mentioned that as well. The connect is important. Without that, it's not a model that works. So thinking at a population level, I'll give you an example, is a company called BioLoom out of Israel. They do biochips, right? Biochips, as you know, are microarrays. They allow you to do personalized scanning at humongous rates. So you're able to take, by the way, program this guy with 1,000 different DNA types, take 1,000 different people's blood, put it into one microarray, come out in, like, say, an hour, give out like 18 or 19 readings, including HB1AC, whatever you want to do at that point of time, and that complexity keeps getting moving forward. But these are all technologies that we have to think of, and they're already in the process in many ways. And I would always encourage us to keep looking at populations, because they are absolutely the key to India. Right?
Thank you, Adarsh, for those insights. I'm going to add here that, when we look at the people of India, as long as we are that same, when we studied in school, we talked about sovereign, socialist, and etc. Basically, as long as we have a Mai Baap Sarkar, in rural India especially, everyone's going to look at the Sarkar to do things for them. So unless the people sitting here in this room and outside, those who have influence and those who have the money, they engage with the governments to work through the government healthcare system, whatever you may talk about population will remain in subpopulations only. Because application at scale comes in when you're looking at the people in the larger context of it. So the point that I'll also add here for is that any investigation or diagnostic technology, I know blood samples are still required, but having been a caregiver myself or being a doctor myself, it is painful to take a blood sample from a loved one. It's painful to give your own blood. Doctors usually prescribe, ye test kara do, kal kara do, repeat kara do. It is so difficult, so painful, I'm telling you, it hurts each time you have to draw a sample. So we need to think about non-invasive, as Adarsh was talking about. We need to think of health communication. We need to provide the people of India with reliable sources of information and not just the WhatsApp university. Where is the single point of contact? The government has got now a national health portal, but that is sadly underutilized and understaffed. Who will drive that demand? I'm just going to suggest maybe the people in this audience can drive that demand. You have to drive the demand, then only a government responds. If a government, I'm not critical of the government. I am supporting the government. I am saying the systems are there. What I'm adding is people of India, the educated, the influential, they're the ones who need to prevail on the government to do the correct thing at the correct time and not afterwards. It's very easy to say afterwards, oh yes, computers are good, IT works. It's very good to say afterwards. Now, with that, I'm just going to add one little note here as the Sathya Sai Foundation is going to set up their medical college. Unless we have that industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the technology industry, has academic tie-ups, not with Harvard necessarily, not with AIIMS Delhi necessarily, with regional medical colleges. We have a large network of regional medical colleges in the country. I suggest strongly that there should be academic partnerships with these various medical colleges that are there to involve them in rural healthcare. Because medical colleges, unfortunately, function in silos. I mean, those of you who have been in medical colleges as students, as postgraduates would know that you are only within the four walls of your college building. It's not outside. by having an industry tie-up where you're conducting research, formative research, you're developing health communication, you're developing tools, you're validating stuff. It's not clinical trials I'm talking about. I'm talking of academic partnership to bring in rigor rather than outsourcing to an agency which does it for money. So that's what I'm trying to bring about, knowledge partnerships. With that, I'm going to ask Madhav, about, as you were introduced, he's the CEO of the India Health Fund. In your view, Madhav, what you see, Dr. Velumani has already brought out the context of how tuberculosis and diabetes are going to be the future the problems that we have to deal with. What is the role of technology in this, and how would agencies who are funding, philanthropic agencies, NGOs, decide what to fund, to invest in, to work on for the greater good of people?
No, thank you for the question. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with India Health Fund, it was set up by Tata Trusts to particularly address this gap that Colonel Cariappa spoke about. So there's been significant market failure, particularly for communicable diseases, in the development of technology to address gaps, particularly in preventive diagnosis, as well as treatment and adherence. So Tata Trust took the lead to set up India Health Fund, which provides the patient capital that is missing for promising early stage technology to go through the development and validation cycle and be available for particularly the most vulnerable. And that is very different from what's happening in non-communicable diseases, where of course there have been massive advances in cancer care, diabetes, you name it. No reasons for guessing why communicable diseases have been underfunded, let's put it that way. And that's where philanthropic capital plays a role in de-risking and creating public goods. And India Health Fund has had a particular focus on tuberculosis, vector-borne diseases, and now to an extent COVID, given these significant overlaps. But again, the focus has been on identifying need gaps that exist, particularly in early stage screening and diagnosis and adherence, and the use of data and analytics for decision support for clinicians. The approach we take, and this is coming back to your question, is to first of all work with service providers, which primarily represent the public sector, state governments, central government, as well as organizations like ICMR, to identify where solutions are either inadequate or not available. We then follow a fairly disciplined process of outreach to really identify where the technologies and deep science exist. And there's plenty of that in the country, which is why India Health Fund was set up to start with, to really leverage the scientific know-how that we have, but support the application of the science to development of solutions. And then we facilitate the validation and outreach. I'm going to illustrate that with 3 examples. There's been a lot of talk about how artificial intelligence has no role for rural populations. What we found was that there was a huge need for early stage screening of people in remote areas for tuberculosis, given that we have 1/4 of the world's TB population. A large part of this is latent TB, doesn't get diagnosed ever. The biggest challenge is not in the availability of chest x-rays. The biggest challenge is in the availability of radiologists who can actually read the x-rays and diagnose. So we funded the development of an AI algorithm, which is linked to a smartphone. The smartphone scans the x-ray, digitizes it, and does a triage within 30 seconds. And this has been proven in 200,000 scans and is now being validated in 100,000 patients across the country. What this has done is it's reduced the time for diagnosis from 1 week to 2 minutes. It's allowing remote healthcare workers to do this without radiologists because the algorithm takes care of it. It's also reduced the time for diagnosis because this is still not approved for as a confirmatory diagnosis. But about 80% of the patients who undergo this now get access to a confirmatory PCR test within 3 days unlike about the 14 days that it was taking earlier. And it's obviously reduced the initiation of treatment time, and as Dr. Velumani pointed out earlier, it's also bringing down transmission, because an undiagnosed patient spreads disease. The second thing that we're working on is drug resistance. Drug-resistant TB is a massive issue in this country. Testing for drug resistance typically starts 6 months after a patient starts treatment, because it takes that long to figure out whether they're responsive to treatment or not. And it's a very expensive proposition, which is all funded by the public program. There's a startup at the Indian Institute of Science about 30 kilometers from here that's using mRNA technology, which is the latest technology in the world, to develop a blood-based biomarker that can diagnose drug resistance within 2 weeks at about 1/10 of the cost that it would take otherwise. It's in development right now, but all signs are pointing to this being a revolutionary approach to diagnosis of drug-resistant TB, which will prevent significant deterioration and death, particularly among patients who don't have access to diagnostics. And I think moving away from tuberculosis, the other big risk we have in this country is vector-borne diseases, mosquitoes. And they're big carriers of not just malaria, but dengue, chikungunya, and all Zika, as we now know. The only way mosquitoes are being controlled today is through fogging. And fogging is sporadic, unscientific, and very much based on whims. We are supporting the development, the application again of artificial intelligence, which is really trapping mosquitoes in traps. The traps have AI algorithms attached to them. The algorithms are reading the wing beat frequencies of mosquitoes. And each species has a different wing beat frequency, so we are funding the development of this library, so that in real time, mosquito concentrations can be transmitted to the central control room. And fogging can happen in real time depending on where mosquito concentrations are growing. This is being used at 4 municipal corporations in the country as we speak on a trial basis: Hyderabad, Bombay, Trivandrum, and Panjim. And the data from this is going to be used for a larger national rollout to really address an unmet need, because right now there is no way of figuring out where mosquito concentrations are going to happen or where the next outbreak of dengue or malaria will happen. This will help address that. So I think I'm going to conclude by saying there is a big belief that technology can only benefit the privileged. What we're trying to do is leverage technology and leverage deep science to benefit the underprivileged. And we're doing that by really leveraging the scientific know-how that we have in this country, which was not getting the capital and the funding that it needed to really take the technology from lab to market. And that's really, I think, where a lot of activity around preventive approaches are happening. But having said that, developing solutions is one thing, making them available at scale is another. And that's where partnerships and collaborations have a big role to play. Fortunately, I think one thing we have COVID to thank for is there is much greater awareness of the role of technology for communicable diseases. Governments are now beginning to come forward, and there is, I think, greater openness and willingness, but it's still a long road ahead. And I would really encourage as much collaboration, partnership as we can, because it's going to take a village. And it's not just one organization that can sort of de-risk all of the challenges that we're facing.
Thank you, Madhav. I was going to use that bit only which he just brought about, that technology is only as good as the people it affects and influences. So if it is restricted to a few, it's not going to benefit the greater good of the greater many. That's what as a country we should be looking at. The last aspect which I'm going to touch on right now is many of you may be aware that early diagnosis, treatment is all a part of prevention. So when we're saying preventive healthcare strategies, do not exclude at any point in time that early diagnosis is not the only thing. Treatment is not the only thing. Prevention also covers health promotion. It also covers general improvement of the health of people. It's like the Sathya Sai foundations are doing in healthcare and nutrition, education. Health is not just one isolated issue. It's not about illness. As it was very correctly brought out by, I think Swamiji said it, it is wellness means we. I cannot stay healthy in isolation from everyone else. I have to make sure that my neighbor, my domestic assistant, my driver, or whoever I'm working with is also healthy. So health requires to be a social initiative, and prevention is not standalone. So equal amount of time needs to be devoted to looking at the other aspects of prevention and not only early diagnosis or only treatment. With that, I'm going to ask the panelists if they've got any last comments before we are also running short of time. If you can ask the audience any questions thereafter. Any comments from our panelists? So, Venugopalji, can we have a few questions if required?
One note and one question. The note is, I was told if the session goes too long, they will skip the lunch. So keep the questions very short. And the question is very simple to Mr. Phillips, because it's easy to connect the logo and the name. Will one day ultrasound read by a machine? Scan today ultrasound. Machine is cheap. Consumables are literally nothing. But test is costly because a full-time qualified radiologist must present and do the ultrasound. Can ever it be done by artificial intelligence? Yes, no, maybe.
Absolutely. It's already done actually. I was mentioning this company called Ultromix. Ultromix gives you an AI inference of your ultrasound within a matter of minutes, right? So I think that's true for all radiology. Eventually everything will go that way.
Okay, I have a question to ask for my learning. How can preventive primary nutritional program be collaboratively scaled up for the masses? Anyone?
That's an interesting thing. I think the answer is that I believe that medical professionals, all of us, we don't actually value nutrition. Nutritional advice, for example, American Medical Association, they were very clear last year. They said that they are not allowing any medical doctor to give any nutritional advice. They put their foot down. They said they need to undergo a special course, then only advise people. It is not just a question of trying to ask people to cut down on fats, cut down on carbs and all that, without any kind of domain expertise in that, number one. So let us, and then for some reason, nutrition is one science that has been neglected. And when we talk of preventive care, and then we talk of diabetes and hypertension, it starts with nutrition. And the problem is, nutrition is something, it is totally a personal issue. It is an emotional. Food is personal and food is emotional. And there are recipes. And the recipes are there too many. There are Master Chefs Australias. And then there are British bakes. And then you have Sadguru foods across the whole country. Different cultures. It's not that easy. And then looking at a scenario like India. So unless you start the right kind of the education, it has to be starting from the schools. I recollect when I was a child, when I was going to primary school and secondary school, those days we were taught of nutrition. The nutrition education started there. The hygienic habit, why should you wash your hands? Make sure that you don't contaminate whatever food you have, access you have. That has to be there. And more importantly, I don't know how to connect this one. This is something which had been biting me since last 1 decade. I'm talking about the rural poor, where they don't have access to the right kind of information and knowledge. Not that people who are living in cities, they have that information, excepting for the WhatsApp group and all that. And then Google is always there to misuse more than to use. So the issue is a person who has got not more than 20 rupees to take care of the nutritional or the hunger part of it per day. Is there any study done or any doctor or any nutritionist have looked at this one? Within 20 rupees, a family, a wife and husband, both of them probably, maybe it's possible that a wife is pregnant. There are 2 growing children who need lots of protein, and there are 2 elderly people like me with diabetes and hypertension. One kitchen, 20 rupees, what is the grocery? What is the healthy diet? If you can give an answer, I think that will be a great prevention part of it. Lots of research is happening, but nobody wants to collect it. And then I think what as a medical doctor, I felt that the problem was ignoring nutritional biochemistry. You talk of histopathology. You try to differentiate the abnormality. But how about the biochemistry part of it? You keep on looking at the lipid profiles, etc., etc., etc. What is the deviation from the normal? And looking at the nutritional point of view, if there is a proper research that is done, and if we can give the right kind of advice, that will be sorting out lots of issues. Number one, the education has to be started, hygienic habit, and what is good food, what is not so good food. And then some regulatory mechanism, of course, we keep on complaining and all that. So Maggies and all that, and then unfortunately there is no other way. You have to make it Maggie friendly, the good foods and all that. So many other things, issues can come up. So I will keep continued and then make sure that their nutrition is available in the healthcare system, especially in public health. There are no nutritionists in the district hospitals. Below that, they are non-existent. As I said that we tried out nutritional advice, and I prefer that I also add some psychological counseling, because when you look at all the documentation about weight management and management of diabetes and other things, the only, in the textbook of Internal Medicine by Harrison, it is at the bottom. The best way to control diabetes is diet and activity. But the thing is, at the same time, in the next column, he writes down, they're impractical because nobody complies. As simple as that.
Very quickly, one suggestion and one question to you. So, India is not one country. India, if you nutrition part you take, probably it comprises 50 or 100 more countries. And everybody has his own food habit and choices. So if you want that everybody should get a nutritious diet, you have to customize the need as per their affordability. Look, Maggie is not the diet of the poor people. Maggie, our and your children eats, not those people who had 5 rupees, 10 rupees. But in that 5, 10 and 15 rupees, if we can make the diet which is nutritious, and that nutritious you would not have to tell scientifically, that you have to tell in a way, the way Jio sells his mobile phone. So make it simple. That's what you are saying. Coming to the issue of, sir, about the controlling particularly vector-borne disease, particularly mosquito. We are tropical countries. We will never be able to control the mosquito because mosquito and we have to live together, learn to live together. What I personally feel, if you really want to prevent the vector-borne disease, you have to prevent the bite. So rather than controlling the density of mosquito, if we can work on the habit of mosquito bite, and if we can work on, that's only I feel. Look, we have never been focused about the prevention of vector-borne disease. There are thousands of ways, the mosquito, this, that, they try to control the number, bite, and finally we could not reach. So the way Dr. Velu said, you have to focus. He focused only on thyroid. So it's my personal view. If in vector-borne disease, mosquito, you just focus on bite and work on that. So combination of AI, particularly AI can do lot here. And in coming time, even for preventive health, AI and point of care test is the future of everything, right from the critical care to any medicine. But AI should work on that if we can prevent and educate people that you have to prevent. There's only one thing, forget about everything. Probably we will be able to control better. That's what my thought.
Any last question from the audience? Sir.
I make it last, so, and simple. You're all going to have lunch. Focus on lunch. While focusing on lunch, what is good to tongue is bad to body. And what is bad to tongue or difficult for the tongue is very good to the body. That is nutritional advice. Thank you.
Thank you so
Please
much.
be seated. We'll just close the
moment,
session in 30 seconds.
2 minutes.
Barney.
Thank you so much, sir. I think the key takeaways have been partnerships. I think the key word through this discussion, especially making fitness and nutritional access more aspirational. Today we have cult in Bangalore where it's so aspirational for all of us to go to a gym. And even nutraceuticals, like so much of options. How do we build in this aspiration to the rural areas? This is a thought that I would leave to the audience. I mean, and a lot of discussions over lunch. I would like to invite our youngest member of our obstetrics team. She's just 82 years old, senior obstetrician, 84, sorry. Senior obstetrician. She still comes to the hospital every day. I would like request her to facilitate all our panelists. First, Vinodini Mahishi, your name, and so that's Adarsh, this Mr. Karyappa, Mr. Subhajit, and Mr. Madhav Joshi. Thank you so much for the engaging discussion. Yes, lunch will be served on the first floor. By 2:20, we'll return for the next session. Thank you.